You expected Christmas to smell like cinnamon, cloves, and sugar cookies. Instead, it smells like the back of a church drawer where forgotten candles went to die. Thick, rancid wax bubbling in a dented pot, filling the room with a greasy smoke that burns your throat before you even take a bite. Merry Christmas, right? The holiday of joy, light, abundance. Except your Christmas feast tonight is literally melted candles mixed with water. Bon appetit. And here's the irony that makes you want to laugh until you choke. People call Christmas the season of miracles, but your miracle is that the half-burnt candles from last year's midnight mass didn't end up in the trash. Because now they're dinner. Your mother stirs the pot like she's making soup, even humming a carol under her breath, but you both know there's no carrot, no potato, no meat, just yellow lumps of wax softening into cloudy streaks that float on top of boiling water. The smell is both sweet and rancid, like honey that sat too long in a dark cupboard. The table is set with chipped plates, bent spoons, and eyes that don't want to meet each other. You're starving. Your stomach growls so loudly it feels like the only carol in the room. And when the first ladle of soup lands in your bowl, you stare at it, waiting for it to magically turn into something else. But no miracle. It just sits there, a glossy puddle of melted wax shimmering with rainbow grease, the way gasoline shimmers in puddles after rain. You take a spoonful. It clings to the metal like glue. You blow on it, not because it's hot, but because you're stalling. Then, you sip. The taste is nothing like food. It's like licking an old candle off a birthday cake, except worse, because now it's your entire meal. Your teeth squeak against the greasy film coating your tongue, and swallowing feels like pouring warm crayons down your throat. Every instinct in your body screams, "Don't do it." But you force it down, because hunger screams louder. The room is quiet, except for the sounds of spoons clinking against bowls. No one talks. No one jokes. The only soundtrack is the low crack of the fire. One more reminder that flames mean light, warmth, and dinner if you're desperate enough. You glance at the candle stub on the table. Tomorrow that stub will melt in the pot too. You wonder how many dinners are left in the drawer of wax, and you already know. Not enough. And here's the worst part. Christmas is supposed to be boring in a cozy way, like you fall asleep in front of a cheesy movie, or you complain about your aunt's fruitcake. That's the kind of boring you want. But this is a different flavor of boring. It's the slow, suffocating kind, where your brain dulls itself to survive, where eating wax soup becomes so normal you stop questioning how disgusting it is. Your taste buds surrender, your imagination shuts off, because dreaming of turkey or cocoa hurts more than swallowing candles. You catch yourself laughing under your breath, quiet, bitter, because somewhere in the world, kids are whining that their presents aren't cool enough, or that they didn't get the gaming console they wanted. Meanwhile, your gift tonight is survival, disguised as soup that smells like a funeral. You wonder what they'd do if they had to sit in this room, spooning wax into their mouths just to keep their bodies from eating themselves. Probably cry, maybe gag, definitely post about it on Instagram before fainting. But you? You don't cry, you don't gag, you don't faint. You swallow, again and again, until your lips shine with grease and your stomach feels heavy, like a candle was lit inside it. It doesn't satisfy, it doesn't fill, but it tricks your body just enough into thinking you've eaten, and for tonight, that illusion is enough, because tomorrow, who knows if you'll even get this. The wax sits in your stomach like a brick, heavy and foreign. It doesn't feel like food. It feels like swallowing a candle whole and waiting for your insides to flicker. You lean back on the chair, the wood pressing sharp against your spine, and you listen. Outside, the wind howls like a wolf circling prey. The windows rattle, the panes shiver. Every sound reminds you that the world out there is frozen, merciless, and that inside isn't much better, except for the thin illusion of warmth radiating from the dying fire. Someone across the table coughs, a deep, hollow cough that rattles in their chest. They wipe their mouth with the back of their sleeve, eyes glazed but determined. No one reacts. Illness is as common as hunger now, and neither gets the attention it deserves. The only thing anyone notices is the scraping of spoons against bowls, chasing the last streaks of wax as if they're chasing gold. Because tomorrow, even this will be gone. You shift the bowl in your hands and notice the rim, chipped, rough, biting at your fingers. This bowl has seen better meals, soups with actual vegetables, stews that filled the house with the smell of garlic and onions sizzling in fat, bread crusts to soak up broth. You try to remember the taste, but the memory slips through your hunger like smoke through fingers. Your mind replaces garlic with wax, onions with grease, bread with ash. It feels like someone rewrote your memories to make survival less painful. Your mother, or maybe it's your sister, maybe even a stranger who became family through survival, forces a smile. "At least it's warm," she says. Her voice cracks on the word warm, and the smile never reaches her eyes. You nod, because what else is there to say? At least it's warm. At least it's something. At least we're not dead yet. The kind of phrases you repeat to trick yourself into believing. You blow into the bowl again, even though it's barely warm anymore. The wax forms a thin skin on top, hardening as it cools. You break it with your spoon, and it cracks like glass. Little islands of solidified fat float on the surface, bobbing with each stir. You scoop one up, press it to your lips, and let it melt against your tongue. The taste is bitter, chemical, with a ghost of smoke. You swallow it anyway. The irony cuts sharper with every bite. Tonight is Christmas Eve. In some other part of the world, families are feasting. Roast meats glistening, glasses clinking, laughter echoing. Children tearing into presents under glittering trees. You can almost hear it, like a radio station bleeding into yours from another frequency. Their world sounds so close, yet it might as well be another planet. Here your Christmas carol is the sound of spoons scraping enamel. Your gift is wax. Your tree is a skeletal branch with maybe one ornament dangling, its shine long faded. And yet, someone hums. A broken melody, trembling, barely audible. A carol you half remember, sung through cracked lips. It's not joyful, not strong, but it's there. The room listens. For a moment, the hunger pauses. For a moment, the wax tastes less like despair and more like endurance. The hum grows, shaky but persistent, and another voice joins in. Soon it's not just humming. It's singing, fragile, off-key, but human. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Maybe both. Because singing about joy while swallowing wax feels like the cruelest joke the universe ever wrote. The song ends, dissolving into silence. For a heartbeat, the room feels alive again. Then the silence returns, heavier than before. The wax sits colder. The fire burns lower. You scrape the bottom of the bowl, desperate for a final taste that doesn't exist. Just streaks of grease that smear across the enamel like fingerprints. You lick the spoon, metal clanging against your teeth, because you can't waste even the illusion of food. When the bowls are empty, they're stacked quietly. No one lingers at the table. No one tells stories or plays games or laughs. Everyone drifts apart like smoke. You stay seated, staring at the stub of a candle flickering on the windowsill. Its flame trembles in the draught, casting shadows that dance across the walls. You can't help but think, tomorrow, that flame will be gone. Not because it burned out, but because you'll eat it. The thought makes your stomach twist, not from hunger, not from disgust, but from something deeper, a fear you can't name. Because when even light becomes food, what's left to hope for? The night settles heavy, pressing against the windows like a second skin. The house is quiet, too quiet, except for the occasional pop of the firewood, each spark a reminder that even fire is running out. You lie down on the floor, wrapped in a blanket that smells of damp and smoke. Your stomach is full, but not satisfied. It feels swollen with something unnatural, as if you swallowed a chunk of the world that was never meant to be eaten. You close your eyes, and behind your eyelids, all you see are candles. Their flames, their wax dripping, their smoke curling. Your body has turned light into food. Sleep doesn't come easy. Hunger never lets you sleep peacefully. It wakes you with cramps, with shivers, with dreams so vivid they blur into hallucinations. Tonight is no different. You dream of a table long and heavy covered in food, roasted meats, golden breads, sugared fruits that sparkle like jewels. You reach out, drooling in your dream, only to bite down on wax. Every piece of food melts into candles. Bread turns to wicks. The roasted goose collapses into a puddle of tallow. You chew and chew, but the taste never changes. Wax on your tongue, wax in your throat, wax filling your lungs until you wake up gasping. The room is dark except for one candle stub flickering by the window. Its light trembles, thin and weak. You stare at it, and you know, tomorrow it will be soup. Your survival is measured in flames, and each flame you eat makes the world darker. The trade is cruel but simple. One more day of life for one less drop of light. You sit up, blanket slipping off your shoulders, and listen. The others are sleeping, or pretending to. Their breaths are shallow, irregular, broken by coughs. You wonder what they're dreaming of. Probably not candle feasts. Probably memories of real Christmases, the ones with snow outside and laughter inside, the ones with music and gifts and tables heavy with food. Or maybe they've stopped dreaming altogether, because dreams hurt too much when you wake. Your stomach growls again, not with the sharp pangs of emptiness, but with the dull ache of wax shifting inside you. It feels wrong, like your body is trying to protest, but you silence it. Because protest doesn't feed you, only wax does. The night stretches longer than it should. Time slows when there's nothing to distract you, nothing to fill the silence except your own thoughts. You count the cracks in the ceiling. You trace the patterns of frost on the window. You imagine what tomorrow will bring, and the answer is always the same: hunger, wax, silence. And yet, despite the bleakness, something strange happens. You find yourself whispering a wish. Not for toys, not for feasts, not even for warmth, just for one more day. You bargain with the darkness the same way people bargain with gods. If I wake up tomorrow, I'll keep going. Just let me wake up tomorrow. It's pathetic, maybe, but it's all you have. The candle stub burns lower. Its light shrinks, flickering weakly, fighting against the cold air that seeps through the cracks. You watch it like a heartbeat, slow, fragile, precious. And when it finally gutters out, the room falls into darkness so complete you forget what light ever looked like. You lie back down, eyes open in the dark. The taste of wax still coats your tongue. Your stomach aches, your throat burns, and the air feels heavier than it should. You don't know if sleep will come again. You don't know if tomorrow will come again. But you do know this. Tonight, on Christmas, you ate light. And that's a memory no one can erase. Because survival isn't pretty. Survival isn't joyful. Sometimes survival is just swallowing wax and pretending it's soup. Sometimes survival is calling that Christmas. Morning comes late, as if even the sun doesn't want to bother showing up for this place. The light that finally seeps through the frostbitten window is grey, weak and almost cruel. You wake up with your tongue glued to the roof of your mouth, tasting bitter wax, your throat stiff like you swallowed a candle whole and forgot to blow it out. Your stomach isn't empty, not yet, but it feels wrong, heavy in a way food never feels. It's a weight that whispers, "You survived last night, but it cost you something." The fire has died to ash. The room smells of smoke and damp wood, like the aftermath of a bonfire nobody enjoyed. You pull the blanket tighter, but it doesn't help. Cold always wins. Cold doesn't care about blankets or prayers or carols. Cold just seeps into your bones until they ache like old wood. You stretch, every joint cracking, and glance toward the drawer, the one where the candles wait. Your new pantry, your fridge of wax. You wish you could slam it shut and never open it again. But survival has its own rules, and dignity isn't one of them. Around you, the others stir awake. Hollow faces, chapped lips, eyes rimmed red. No one says Merry Christmas. No one says good morning. Words have become too expensive to waste on greetings. Instead, there's silence, and the shuffling of feet as they move toward the day, if you can call it a day. There's no work, no gifts, no meals to prepare, just the endless task of surviving without collapsing. You glance outside. Snow piles high, blanketing the street in silence. Once upon a time, you might have found it beautiful. Kids would have been building snowmen, throwing snowballs, their laughter echoing through alleys. Now it's just a graveyard of sound. No one plays outside anymore. No one risks burning calories for fun. Every flake feels like a reminder of what you've lost. Your stomach growls, even though it's still heavy with wax. The hunger is relentless, gnawing at you, mocking you. You remember what food used to taste like. Real food. The crust of warm bread, the sweetness of jam, the salt of butter melting on top. You cling to the memory, but the more you imagine, the worse the ache becomes. You shove the thought away. Memories don't feed you. Wax does. The ritual begins again. Someone opens the drawer, hands trembling, and pulls out a stub of candle, just one. They hold it up like treasure, even though it's pathetic. Half-burned, bent, the wick blackened and useless now. It should be light. It should sit on a table, flickering against smiling faces. But instead, it's food. It gets tossed into a pot with water, and the room fills with that same sickly sweet smell of melting wax. Your stomach churns. You want to gag, but you know in an hour you'll be scooping it into your bowl and forcing it down again. The sound of boiling water is the soundtrack of survival. Soft, bubbling, mocking. You sit at the table, staring at the steam rising from the pot. It curls upward like ghosts escaping, like lost prayers. You catch yourself whispering one, "Please, just let it taste different today." But you already know the answer. When the bowls are filled, everyone eats. No words, no thanks, no rituals. Just spoons dipping into liquid wax, mouths opening, throats swallowing. You follow, your hand shaking slightly as you lift the spoon. The first sip coats your lips, burns your tongue, and slides down your throat like glue. The taste is the same as last night. Maybe worse. It's not food. It's survival in disguise, and yet you swallow because there's no choice. Halfway through the bowl, you realize something terrifying. Your body is starting to accept it. The disgust dulls. The gag reflex fades. Each bite feels more normal than the last. That's how hunger rewires you. It doesn't ask what you want. It teaches you to want what you have, even if what you have is wax. And somewhere in that moment, you feel the true horror. The possibility that one day you might even crave it. By midday, the cold has opinions about your bones. It files complaints with every joint, lobbying for you to fold in half and become a decorative piece called "person who gave up." You stand anyway because sitting feels like surrender, and lying down feels like dying. The drawer is emptier than yesterday, and the pot is cleaner than you've ever seen it, which is a cruel joke. The cleaner the pot, the worse the day. That's the law of famine. There's talk of options. Options is a fancy word for beg. Options means you will inventory the neighborhood like a black market accountant. Church, shop, neighbors, dumpsters that froze into vaults. Options means walking outside and letting the air bite your face on purpose. The plan is simple. Wax hunt. Church first, because churches hoard candles like dragons hoard gold. Not out of malice, just because light is cheap hope, and people tithe for hope, even when they can't spare bread. You tug your coat closed, a garment more memory than fabric, and step into a street that looks powdered with sugar if you're romantic, or cremated world if you're honest. Your breath comes out in clouds. Somewhere far away a door slams, otherwise the city is a paused movie. The church door complains when you push it, hinges crying like old men. Inside, the air smells like cold stone and old wax and the last perfume of faith. You know the scent. Funerals, midnight masses, baptisms where babies shriek as if they can smell the future. A caretaker sits near the front like an exclamation mark that forgot its sentence. He watches you the way people have learned to watch everybody now, softly suspicious. You nod, respectful vagrant mode, and head for the side altar like you're there to pray. In a way, you are. Candles, stubs everywhere, the kind of stubs that used to get tossed without a thought. Today they look like currency. You hover a palm over the tray, feeling the leftover heat of yesterday's prayers. Imagine picking up each wish and boiling it. The caretaker coughs a warning shaped like a throat clearing. You turn, pull your best "I'm just tidying" face, and stack the shortest stubs into a neat little pyramid. He squints. You freeze. Then the moment breaks. He stands and shuffles closer, hands in sleeves. "Take the ends," he says, voice like paper. "Leave me the tall ones for funerals." You nod so fast your neck pops. You thank him like you're accepting a medal, and he waves you away like gratitude is contagious. You collect an entire pocket full of midnight hope, the wax scarred with monk fingerprints and smoke. On your way out, you light one of the remaining tall candles with a match that feels sacrilegious. The flame trembles, ridiculous and brave, and for 3 seconds you let it warm your hands. The caretaker pretends not to see. Next stop, the old grocer's place, boarded up and haunted by the ghost of produce. You navigate a maze of crates that now hold nothing but air and dust, then find the back room where the paraffin lived its former life as for canning and for jams. Shelves, stripped. Floor, swept. Hope. Check under the counter. You do, and you find a single brick of paraffin, dented, wrapped in wax paper like a relic. It smells like nothing. It looks like every miracle you ever wanted. You hide it inside your coat like a hot secret, and don't run because running announces treasure. Outside, the wind decides you owe it rent. It lifts your coat with gossiping fingers, knifing through your sweater as if knitting were a suggestion. You pass a man chipping ice off a stoop with a broom handle. He glances at your oddly shaped coat and does the math. His eyes say trade. Your eyes say not today. He nods, the silent covenant of winter. We see each other. We don't ruin each other. Home is 5 blocks and 7 lifetimes away. You count steps to distract your hunger, counting twice when the sidewalk heaves. By the 3rd block, you're thinking about soup like it's a crime you're planning. You'll shave the paraffin, mix it with water, a pinch of salt if the universe remembered to be kind, maybe onions if the ghost of a pantry shows up. You imagine whisking air into it like a fancy chef, as if you could beat flavor into existence. You imagine holding the hot bowl and telling your body, this is fine, we're fine, everything is fine. Then you imagine the flush of shame that always follows, because calling it soup feels like telling a lie you're tired of defending. You reach the building, and the door sticks the way it always does when wood swells with damp and despair. Inside, the stairwell smells like other people's lives: wet wool, coal smoke, boiled garments, a whiff of something stewy that makes you delirious until you realize it's just someone scrubbing the floor with lye. You climb like each step is a year, and when you finally cross the threshold, eyes look up. No one asks questions. No one cheers either. Joy is rationed more strictly than salt. You lay your haul on the table. Church stubs, the paraffin brick, a ribbon of wick scavenged from pocket lint mythology. They gather around like you set down treasure maps. Someone smiles with their eyes. Someone else crosses themselves without meaning to. The pot comes out. Water goes in. Stubs first, paraffin next. Wick saved as garnish for tomorrow's disaster. The smell of warming wax rises stealthy. A hand reaches for the salt tin. You shake 1, 2, 3 grudging grains like you're baptizing the pot. Boil, skim, stir. Hear the spoon tap-tap against enamel like Morse code. Still here, still here, still here. You make the broth thinner so it stretches and thicker so it feels real. Alchemy, with no right answer. When bowls appear, you ladle carefully, as if generosity were a muscle you could flex. The first mouthful is okay, not good, not disgusting, just okay in a way that scares you, because okay can become normal, and normal can become forever. You finish half and put the spoon down to listen to the room breathe. It's quieter now, but not the sick quiet, the resting quiet. Someone hums that broken carol again, and this time it lands less like irony and more like insistence. We are still the kind of people who hum, it says. You lean back, cup between your palms, and let the steam pretend to be aroma. Then the knock, soft, polite, dangerous. Everyone freezes, because knocks in winter are either salvation or arithmetic you can't pay. You glance at the door. Another knock, firmer. A rhythm that says neighbor, not soldier, but fear doesn't read rhythms. It reads headlines. You stand anyway, wipe your mouth, and open to a woman from 2 floors down, cheeks red, scarf shedding ice. In her hands, a jar with something cloudy. In her eyes, a bargain. I'll swap, she says. Wax for broth of bones. Bones. Actual bones. The words ring like church bells in your skull. Your stomach lurches awake like a dog who heard a can open. You look back at the pot. You look at the jar. Pale liquid, a shimmer of fat, tiny constellations of marrow. The room leans forward all at once like a tide dragged by the moon. You say, show me. She unscrews the lid, and a whisper of animal whispers back. Real food smell, faint but undeniable. Your tongue floods, your hands shake. You want to grab it and run, except there is nowhere to run and nothing to do but choose. Wax you understand. Bone broth you barely remember. One buys you today, the other tastes like yesterday. You take the jar, weigh it, let the need rise like heat behind your eyes, and then you do the math that no one wants to do aloud. How much, you ask. For how much? She nods at the paraffin brick. Half. Half is too much. Half is also obvious. Half is the price of smelling like a person for 15 minutes. You break the brick with a knife that shouldn't be able to, and it does with a dull, surgical thunk. You hand her the share, and she hands you the jar, and for a second your fingers touch and it feels like a contract signed with pulse. She leaves without ceremony. You close the door, and the room exhales like a choir, then inhales, greedy. You pour the broth into the pot. It hits the wax soup like a rumor that changes the plot, and suddenly the room smells, my God, like food. Thin, ghostly food, but food. Eyes widen, spoons hover. You stir until your wrist aches, and the surface turns from mirror to murky promise. Someone laughs, small and feral and embarrassed by itself. You taste first. It is nothing and everything, the faintest thread of animal, a suggestion of muscle memory unwinding, a reminder that your mouth was built for more than melting candles. It makes you hungrier in a way that almost breaks you. You blink hard. You serve. Bowls lift, lips part, and for a minute, the room forgets how to be afraid. Which is exactly when the shouting starts outside. Heavy boots in the stairwell, the sound of an argument turning into orders, a voice you recognize and one you don't, and the sudden knowledge that the door you just closed might not stay closed long enough for anyone to finish a bowl. The broth is still hot on your tongue when the stairwell explodes with noise. Boots pounding, voices sharp like broken glass, the kind of sounds that mean authority has arrived. You freeze with the spoon halfway to your mouth. Everyone else freezes too. For a moment, the only movement in the room is the steam rising from the pot, carrying with it the fragile smell of bones that just betrayed you. The shouting outside grows closer, echoing off the walls, distorted into something inhuman. You hear doors slamming above, feet scurrying, wood splintering. Then, silence. The kind of silence that hangs in the air before a verdict. A hand grips your arm. Someone whispers, "Hide it." Another hisses, "Don't move." The broth in the pot bubbles quietly, innocent but guilty, a scent so foreign it screams luxury. You look around. Where do you even hide food? Under the table? Behind the stove? In your stomach? Your body makes the choice for you. You shovel spoonfuls into your mouth, burning your tongue, searing your throat, swallowing like a thief. Others do the same, desperate, spoons clattering against bowls in frantic rhythm. Survival turns you into an animal. Eat before it's taken. Eat before they see. Eat because the sound of boots is almost at the door. A knock, not polite this time. A fist, heavy, demanding. Everyone stares. The fire pops, loud enough to make you flinch. A second knock, harder, then a voice. Open. Just one word, flat and sharp. The kind of voice that doesn't wait for answers. The door creaks open, not by your choice. A neighbor, trembling, pulls it wide. Two men step inside. Their coats are heavy, their eyes heavier. They scan the room like hunters smelling prey. One of them sniffs, literally sniffs the air, and his gaze sharpens. He knows. He smells it. The broth. The proof that someone somehow got more than wax. Where? He asks. Not what. Not who. Just where. No one speaks. Silence is the last weapon you have, thin as paper, but still sharp. The men step closer. Their boots echo against the floorboards. They glance at the bowls, at the pot, at the guilty faces lined up like suspects. One man jabs a finger at the pot. Here. The caretaker voice in your head screams, "Lie," but your body betrays you again. Your lips glisten with grease. Your bowl is half empty. You've been caught not with words, but with smell, with shine, with the way your hunger turned into satisfaction too quickly. One of the men dips a spoon into the pot. He lifts it, examines the oily sheen, then tastes. His jaw tightens. He spits onto the floor. "Meat," he says. "Illegal." Illegal. The word slices you open. Since when is survival illegal? Since now? Since always? They look at each other, then back at the room. One man kicks the table. Bowls crash to the floor, broth spilling into cracks, vanishing as fast as hope. Someone cries out, not from pain, but from the loss. The second man grabs the paraffin brick shard you tried to hide. He holds it up like evidence. "You trade?" he asks. Not curious, accusatory. You want to shout, "Yes, we traded," because wax isn't food and bones are barely food, but it's Christmas and we're human, and we wanted one moment of not dying. Instead, your throat locks. You stare. Everyone stares. The room is a portrait of guilt, painted in hunger and silence. The men don't wait. They sweep the table clean, kick through blankets, overturn drawers. They're not searching for weapons. They're searching for food. And every scrap, every crumb, every stub of candle they find, they pocket. By the time they leave, the room is emptier than before. The broth is gone. The wax is gone. Even the smell feels stolen. The door slams shut behind them. The stairwell echoes with their boots fading away. Then silence. Not relief, never relief, but the hollow silence that follows loss. The room looks the same, but everything inside it is broken. You sit on the floor, hands trembling, stomach burning with the broth you swallowed too fast. Around you, others slump into chairs, into corners, into themselves. No one speaks. What is there to say? You had food, and then you didn't. You had hope, and then it was confiscated. You had a Christmas miracle, and it was illegal. The worst part isn't the hunger. The worst part is the taste still on your tongue. The faint, fading memory of marrow, of fat, of something real. It lingers like a ghost haunting you, because now you know what you're missing. Candle soup was survivable because you could pretend it was food. Bone broth is unbearable because it proves it wasn't. You close your eyes. Your body is full for now, but your soul feels hollow. And you know tomorrow the drawer will open again, wax will melt again, and you'll eat again, because what else can you do? Survival has no dignity. Survival has no holidays. Survival just repeats. And maybe that's the most boring, brutal truth of all. Morning again, if you can even call it that. The light is grey, filtered through frost that paints the window like cracked glass. You wake with your lips stuck together, not from sleep, but from the residue of last night's broth. The taste still clings, a ghost that refuses to leave. Your stomach aches, not with hunger exactly, but with the confusion of a body that was teased with real food and then robbed of it. It feels betrayed, as if survival itself tricked you. The room is heavy with silence, not the calm silence of peace, but the exhausted silence of people who have nothing left to say. You sit up, blanket sliding off, the cold gnawing at your skin instantly. Someone coughs in the corner, wet and deep. Someone else rubs their hands together for warmth, though there's no fire left to warm them. The drawer, your sacred pantry of wax, has been stripped clean by the men who barged in. All that's left are a few shavings clinging to the wood, as if mocking you. Your throat burns as you swallow. You want water, but water alone only makes the hunger scream louder. You want food, but food is a fairy tale now. The paraffin brick is gone, the broth is gone, even the illusion is gone, and yet your body still expects breakfast as if life hasn't changed. You press a hand to your stomach, trying to silence the growl that echoes in the quiet. The conversation finally begins, low and sharp. Whispers about what happened last night, about how unfair it is, about what could have been done differently. But no one says the truth out loud. There was never a choice. Survival is always theft, one way or another. Either you steal from hope or you steal from tomorrow. And yesterday you tried to steal from despair, and it cost you everything. Someone suggests searching again. Not for broth this time. No one is foolish enough to dream that big anymore. But for candles. The church won't help again. The grocer's back room is empty. That leaves scavenging the forgotten corners of the city, the places no one dares to look because they've already been stripped bare. But what else is there to do? Sit here and starve politely? You stand, legs weak, knees stiff, and grab your coat. The others follow, not out of courage, but out of necessity. The stairwell smells of old smoke and mold. The air outside smacks your face with frost, sharp enough to make your eyes water. Snow crunches under your boots, each step loud in the hollow silence of a city emptied of life. You wander, street after street, building after building, nothing but boarded windows and shadows, a broken toy half buried in snow, a shoe without its pair, a door swinging open to reveal a room stripped to bones. Every corner whispers the same story. Someone was here before you, and they took everything worth taking. Hours pass, or maybe minutes. It's impossible to tell. Time doesn't flow normally anymore. It drips, slow and uneven, like wax itself. Finally, you find a small shop. The sign above is cracked, letters faded, but you can still make them out. Household goods. Your heart kicks. Household goods means candles. Maybe. The door resists, frozen to its frame, but you push harder, shoulder against wood, until it gives with a groan. Inside, the air is stale, thick with dust. Shelves lean drunkenly against the walls, their contents long gone. You walk slowly, eyes scanning every surface, every shadow. The floor creaks like it wants to betray you, and then you see it. A box, tucked under a fallen shelf, half buried in dust. You crouch, fingers numb as you tug it free. The cardboard crumbles, but inside, nestled like relics, are candles. Real candles. Not many, 6, maybe 7, but to you they look like salvation. White, long, unburned, perfect. Your hands shake as you lift them. They're lighter than you expected, fragile, almost delicate. But in your eyes they glow. You tuck them into your coat, heart racing, and stand. That's when you hear it. A sound. Behind you. A shuffle. You freeze. Slowly, you turn. There, in the doorway, stands another figure. Thin, hunched, wrapped in rags. Eyes sunken, lips cracked. They've seen you find the candles, they know, and in those eyes you see the reflection of your own hunger. Neither of you speaks. Neither of you moves. The candles in your coat feel suddenly heavier, like they're dragging you down. You know what's about to happen, because survival has no witnesses. The stranger in the doorway doesn't blink. Neither do you. The air between you is razor thin, sharp enough to cut. The box is empty now, but the shape of candles under your coat betrays you like a bulge of gold coins. Your breath clouds in the air. There's two ghosts fighting over a single heartbeat of hope. For a moment, you try telepathy. Maybe if you think hard enough, they'll understand. Please don't. Please let me leave. Please pretend you didn't see anything. But hunger makes people deaf to anything but their own stomachs. And you know deep down if the roles were reversed, you wouldn't look away either. The silence shatters with a sound. Just a step. Their boot crunches against broken glass on the floor. The message is clear. They're not leaving. Not without those candles. You take a step back, hand pressing against your coat like you're steadying yourself, but really you're holding on to the candles. Your voice croaks, rusty from disuse, when you whisper, "I found them." The stranger tilts their head, lips parting just enough to reveal cracked gums. Their answer is a laugh, low, dry, the kind of laugh that says, "So what?" In their eyes, you see it. Desperation, yes, but also calculation. They're weighing you against the candles. Are you strong? Are you weak? Can they take them? Can you stop them? Your pulse answers before your brain does. It hammers in your ears, screaming, "Fight or run." But running with candles rattling in your coat is a confession. And fighting. Fighting means burning calories you can't replace. Fighting means spilling blood over wax. The absurdity of it hits you. You're about to kill or be killed over something that's not even food. Not really. Just the illusion of it. But illusions keep you alive. They move first. A lunge. Clumsy, but fueled by hunger. You stumble back, shoulder slamming into a shelf that crashes down in a spray of dust and wood. Your hand scrambles for anything, finds a jagged piece of metal, maybe part of the shelf, maybe part of the building itself. You swing without thinking. The sound it makes when it connects is sickening. The stranger crumples, groaning, clutching their arm, not dead, not gone, but stopped, for now. Their eyes blaze with something beyond hunger now. Rage, betrayal, a promise that if they stand again, this won't end quietly. Your body doesn't wait for logic. It bolts. You grab the candles tighter, coat pressed to your chest, and you run. Out the door into the street, snow crunching beneath your boots. Behind you, a wail, human, animal, wounded, follows like a curse. You don't look back. Looking back is permission to stop. And stopping is death. Your lungs burn with each gulp of icy air. The city blurs. Grey walls, white snow, black shadows. Every doorway feels like it hides another hungry set of eyes. Every corner feels like an ambush. But somehow you make it back. The stairwell swallows you, the smell of damp and coal smoke wrapping around you like a filthy blanket. When you stagger inside, the room stares. Eyes widen at the sight of your bulging coat, at the sweat streaking down your face. You collapse against the table, fumbling to pull the candles free. 6. Unburned, untouched. Miracles. For a moment, the room forgets the world. Smiles twitch at the edges of mouths. Someone claps a hand to their lips to hide a gasp. Someone else starts to cry silently, as if joy itself is forbidden. But then they see you, really see you. The bruise already blooming on your cheek, the rip in your sleeve, the tremble in your hands. "What happened?" someone whispers. You don't answer. You can't. If you speak, you'll have to tell them about the stranger, about the look in their eyes, about the sound of metal against bone, about the truth. These candles weren't free. You stole them not from a shelf, but from another human's chance at living. Instead, you just say, "I found them," and you leave it there. The candles are split carefully, not all at once. No, that would be wasteful, suicidal. One tonight, melted into soup. One tomorrow, One the next day, a ration of light disguised as food. You watch as the first is cut, shaved into the pot, the white wax curling like shavings of ivory. The water boils, the smell rises. Familiar now, too familiar. When the bowls are filled, you eat. Slowly, quietly. The wax coats your tongue, sticks to your teeth, slides down like sludge. But this time it tastes different. Not because the candle is different, but because you are. Because you know where it came from. Because every mouthful is a reminder that someone else is out there, hungry, furious, waiting. And when you close your eyes, you see them, standing in that doorway, clutching their arm, eyes burning holes into you. You wonder if they're still there in that empty shop, bleeding, searching for something else to survive on. You wonder if they'll follow. You wonder if they'll remember your face. You wonder if you've just created a ghost who isn't content to haunt you quietly. Night folds over the city like damp wool, itchy and suffocating. The room shrinks around the little tin stove, its belly empty, its mouth black. You sit with your back to the wall, counting the heartbeats between each draft that sneaks under the door. 1, 2, whisper. 3, 4, rattle. You pretend you're listening for weather, but you're listening for footsteps. The kind that know your address. The kind that remember your face. No one speaks about the shop. Nobody asks what your sleeve caught on or why your knuckles look like you punched winter. Silence isn't compassion. It's logistics. The house has 7 candles left. 6 from the box, 1 stub rescued from a shrine picture frame. The math is relentless. 1 candle per day buys a week. A week is both everything and nothing. A week is the amount of time it takes to develop hope you can't afford. You break the evening into jobs because tasks feel like control. One person grates wax into curls with a knife that has opinions. Another boils water. Someone else holds a cup over the pot to catch the steam and pretend it's aromatherapy instead of poverty. You're on guard duty, which is just a decorated way to say, stand nearest the door and be the first to get blamed. Your ears learn the language of the building. The drunk cough on the 3rd floor, the baby hiccup in 2B, the pipe that clears its throat every hour like a bored baritone. Somewhere, a radio wheezes out a hymn that used to mean joy. Now it means battery. When the soup is ready, there's a ceremony no one admits is a ceremony. Each bowl is set down with a care that would be sentimental in any other decade. People cradle them the way they once held gifts. You take yours last, because superstition likes voluntary sacrifice. First sip, warm glue, sweet with old smoke, clean as an eraser. The wax slides down your throat like a secret you don't want to keep. You swallow anyway. Second sip, easier. Third sip, automatic. You hate how practiced you are. After, when the bowls are stacked and the pot whispers itself to sleep, the storytelling starts. Not the fun kind, inventory tales. A cousin saw a horse. A man traded boots for lard, and learned lard doesn't fit like leather. Word of a bakery with flour you can rent by the handful if you leave something valuable, like your shadow. Rumor says a supply truck got snowed in near the river, but rumor also says the river eats people who believe in rumor. Someone asks about Christmases before. Not to reminisce, to calibrate sorrow. There's laughter in the wrong places and silence in the right ones. You contribute nothing. Your mind is busy reconstructing the stranger's eyes from the shop doorway. Not begging eyes, calculating eyes, the kind that can add pain and subtract mercy and arrive at an answer that keeps them vertical. You pull the little dresser from the wall and kneel behind it. The wood sighs. You pry up the loose floorboard, your one private miracle. Beneath it, not treasure. A fragment of mirror, a length of twine, a paper star from a year when glue was flour paste and flour was still for baking. You touch the star until your fingers smell like old holidays, then return it to the pocket grave. You add 1 candle to the hole just in case. Insurance against the kind of emergency that can only be survived with light disguised as lunch. Sleep is a performance. Everybody lies down and pretends to audition for it. You volunteer for first watch, which is how you avoid pretending. The room snores like tired dogs. You sit by the window with a blanket around your shoulders and the shard of mirror in your palm, angling it to catch what little moon there is. Reflected, you looks like a rumor of a person. You practice not flinching. The street is a corridor of shadows. Snowfox wind trots along the gutters, leaving paw prints of noise. Once a figure crosses from one doorway to another, hunched muscle memory of caution. You hold your breath and count to 50 because nothing horrible can happen during counting. At 48, there's a sound in the stairwell, light as a thought. You stand, mirror shard tucked against your wrist like a secret blade. The sound doesn't repeat. That's worse than if it had. You open the door a thumb's width and taste the hall. Coal, old cabbage, damp. No footprints, no lantern. But quiet can hide anything that learned your cadence. You close the door softly, slide the bolt, and wedge the chair under the knob. You tell yourself you are cautious, not afraid. Your stomach disagrees. Hours pass in hums and almosts. The window fogs with your breathing, then clears. The moon quits. The dark fattens until it sits on your lap and asks about your plans. Somewhere in the building a glass breaks and a woman laughs. Too quick, too sharp. You inventory your body. Fingers cold, toes numb, eyelids a negotiation. You lose the argument with a blink that lasts too long. You wake to the scrape. Not outside, not in the hall, under the window. You freeze so completely the blanket forgets you're under it. Then you move, slow, deliberate, like you want the darkness to think you're furniture. You lean toward the glass. Frost feathers the edges, a rim of white eyelashes. You wipe a circle clear. For a heartbeat, there is nothing but your ghost face in the pain. Then a shape lifts from the wall, wrong angle, wrong rhythm, and you realize someone is standing on the drain pipe, hugging the bricks like a lover with terrible boundaries. A hat, a scarf, a gloved hand. The other arm hangs stiff against the body, crooked in a way you recognize with a lurch. The shop, the metal, the strike you delivered because you wanted to keep breathing. They turn their head toward the window. Even through the frost, even through the dark, you know those eyes. The gloved hand taps the glass. Once, twice. Polite as a nightmare with manners. You don't scream. Screaming uses air. Instead, you lift the blanket like it's authority and step backward until your heel finds the table leg. The room around you sleeps like a trick. You have to choose, wake everyone and turn this into a committee problem, or open the window and make it a personal one. The tap comes again, slower. The universal rhythm for I have time. You set the mirror shard on the sill. Your fingers find the latch, you slide it. The window lifts with a sticky complaint, and winter rushes in, scent of iron and unfinished sentences. The figure's breath fogs the space between you. What do you want? You whisper. Their answer is a rasp ground on gravel. You took what was mine. You consider the legal defense of famished thieves. It's short. We share, you say, surprising yourself. Half. You hear your voice invent fairness like it can make history blush. They tilt their head. The gloved hand flexes, pain stuttering the motion. Half, they repeat, and it sounds like a word a person tries on to see if it fits. You fetch the hidden candle from under the floorboard. It weighs almost nothing and somehow everything. You hold it up, moon pale in the dark. The stranger leans in, eyes narrowing, calculating a different math. Risk of reaching, angle of escape, value of vengeance. You extend your arm. The candle hangs in the cold like a truce made of paraffin and stupidity. A commotion erupts down the hall. Boots again, orders again, the building's bad refrain. Flashlight beams slash under the door like wolves sniffing for a throat. You and the stranger both look toward it, then back at each other across the open mouth of winter. Take it, you hiss. Go. They hesitate one heartbeat longer. Enough time to memorize your face from inches away. Then snatch the candle, tuck it to their chest, and vanish into the snow-laced dark. You slam the window. The beam of light stops outside your door. A fist meets wood. Open. Your hand finds the bolt and pauses. The knocking at the door doesn't stop. Each pound shakes dust loose from the ceiling. Each command from outside rattles the bowls stacked on the shelf. Open, open, open. The word echoes like a hymn twisted into a threat. Your hand rests on the bolt, the wood vibrating under your fingers, the entire building holding its breath with you. Inside the room, the others stir awake. Confused whispers. Someone groans. Someone curses under their breath. Someone else clutches their child close without even knowing why yet. Fear doesn't need explanation. It spreads faster than fire. All it takes is the tone of a voice outside and suddenly you're all wide-eyed, hollow, waiting for the worst. The fist bangs again, harder this time. The chair wedged under the knob trembles. You imagine it splintering, the door swinging wide, boots flooding in like a river of lawless order. You imagine them sniffing the air again, searching for contraband that doesn't exist anymore. The broth is gone. The wax is almost gone. You've got nothing left worth stealing except your bones, and those don't boil into soup. You glance at the others. Their eyes are fixed on you, silently asking, "What now?" You don't know. You never know. Survival isn't about plans, it's about improvisation. It's about lying convincingly enough to trick death into moving on to the next house. The bolt feels heavy as you slide it back. The chair scrapes as you pull it aside. The door creaks open just enough for a sliver of cold air to knife in. And there they are. Not soldiers this time, not officials, just men, wrapped in coats too thick for honesty, their faces half hidden by scarves, their eyes glitter like glass shards. One leans close, his breath sour. "We heard," he says. 2 words, but they carry the weight of accusation. You swallow, your throat raw. "Heard what?" He smirks, teeth yellow in the dim light. "That you're hoarding. Wax. Candles. Soup." He drags the last word out, savoring it like a luxury. Behind him, another man shifts impatiently, his boots crunching the ice outside. You shake your head. "We've got nothing. Search if you want." It's the wrong thing to say. Always is. Because they do. Boots scrape against the floor as they shove past you, eyes darting, hands greedy. They flip blankets, kick open drawers, tear through the pitiful remains of your possessions. Every sound is another nail in your chest. One man crouches near the stove, poking at the ash. Another pries up a floorboard, just 2 planks away from where you hid the candle last night. Your pulse surges so violently you feel it in your teeth. If they find the hollow, if they discover it's empty, they'll know something was there. And then questions will come. Questions with consequences. The others watch helplessly. No one moves. Resistance isn't bravery. It's suicide. You're all too thin, too weak, too used to bending. You stand with your back against the wall, fists clenched in your pockets, pretending your silence is dignity and not terror. Finally, after what feels like an hour stretched into centuries, the men straighten. One spits into the ash. Nothing. His disappointment curdles into anger. He grabs a chipped cup from the shelf and hurls it against the wall, shattering it into white dust. "If we find out you're lying..." He leaves the sentence unfinished, letting the threat hang heavier than words. They leave as suddenly as they came, boots crunching away, their shadows stretching thin across the snow outside. The door slams, the sound ricocheting through your chest. The room exhales in fragments. Someone sobs quietly. Someone mutters a prayer. You sink into a chair, hands trembling, the ghost of their search still clawing at your skin. You glance at the floorboard, hiding your secret. Safe, for now. But safety is a word that doesn't last long anymore. The candles you found are still rationed. Tonight, another one shaves into the pot, filling the room with the familiar, sickly sweet smell. This time, no one pretends it's food. No one even pretends it's survivable. It's just wax. Melted, oily, clinging to spoons and throats alike. People swallow mechanically, as if feeding machines, not bodies. The silence is thicker than the soup itself. Afterward, you lie awake again, your eyes fixed on the ceiling where cracks spiderweb like veins. The knock at the window from last night replays in your head. The stranger's voice, "You took what was mine." The look in their eyes, equal parts hunger and promise. You gave them one candle, but it wasn't charity. It was negotiation with fate. And fate never settles for half. You drift into a half-sleep, and in the dream you're back in the shop. Candles glowing in the box, the stranger's hand reaching out, your arms swinging with metal. Only this time, they don't fall. This time they grab the candles before you do, and when you lunge, your hand closes on nothing. You wake gasping, clutching the blanket like it owes you something. Outside, the city groans under the weight of snow. Inside, your body groans under the weight of wax. And both seem to be waiting for the same thing, the next knock. Morning arrives like a bill you can't pay, loud, insistent, and pretending to be polite. Your throat tastes of old smoke and swallowed lies. You sit up slow, the blanket peeling from you with the gentle enthusiasm of tape from skin. The room is a shipwreck that forgot the sea, bowls stacked like broken portholes, a stove that dreams of fire, faces beached by exhaustion. No one says good morning because mornings stopped being good the same year. Candles learned to pretend they were soup. Inventory, then. The ritual keeps panic from buying property in your lungs. You count the survivors. 4 unburned candles, 2 sad stubs, 1 guilty floorboard. Zero paraffin bricks, zero illusions. Outside, the snow is so bright it feels like a personal attack. The sky looks clean in that smug way skies always look when you're suffering. Somewhere a dog barks and you're briefly furious at it for owning a metabolism. There's a conversation you've been avoiding, so naturally it starts without you. We can stretch it, someone says. Thin the wax, add flour. Flour is a fairy tale. Potato skins, the kind of optimism that gets statues toppled. We could render boots. This from a man wearing the last pair of leather in the building, and everyone's eyes go there like magnets gossiping. He crosses his ankles defensively. A prince guarding thrones that used to be feet. You suggest water. You say it like a joke and nobody laughs, which is how jokes are born dead now. The truth is boring, and you are drowning in it. You need more wax. The church and grocer are tapped out. The stranger from the drain pipe is a coin you can't flip twice. That leaves the dump by the tram depot, a sprawl of broken objects and unbroken hopes, rumors of tallow barrels, paraffin wrappers, scrapings from factories that learned to stop wasting. It's a walk, and the walk is a thief, but staying is worse. You layer clothes like lies and set out with two others. One knows shortcuts, one knows how to look invisible. You know how to run uphill on fear. The streets have thawed just enough to betray ankles. Ice hides under polite snow like a slick little sermon. You move slow, heads down, a procession of nobody. The tram lines are quiet, rails gleaming like knives someone forgot to put away. Posters flap on brick, faces promising things no longer for sale. At the depot fence you meet the guardian of all modern treasure, rust. It has eaten most of the lock and half the gate, and a meaningful percent of your courage. You push where others have pushed, and the metal surrenders with a sigh that sounds like resignation and tetanus. Inside, mountains of could-be, crates yawning empty, crates sulking full, drums with lids like stubborn thoughts. The wind has opinions and voices, crows, wires, distance. You split up because that's how horror stories make progress. You find it by smell first. Not food, don't be ridiculous, but that clean candle shop with a sin smell of paraffin. A half-rolled drum lies on its side behind a heap of broken mannequins. The word paraffin is stenciled on in a font that thinks it's important. You kneel, hands numb, and lever the lid. It clings, then pops, with a metallic burp. Inside, a slab of off-white fossil. Your throat makes a sound you've never heard it make. Part laugh, part prayer, part animal that found a trap with meat still in it. You glance around. The others are silhouettes talking to piles. You break off a corner with a crowbar that wasn't a crowbar 15 minutes ago. It flakes like cold butter, which is the most luxurious sentence you've formed all winter. You tuck chunks beneath your coat until you look like smugglers invented for children's books. Then you do the calculation of greed versus legs, and greed apologizes while legs vote to leave. On the way out, you pass the mannequin heap again. One has your posture. You hate it. Another has a wig the color of summer stories. You want to take the wig home and announce hair night. You do not because you're not insane, you're starving. The fence gives you only a little grief on the exit, like it's sad to see you go. The street feels both farther and closer. The cold climbs up your shins, counting bones. Halfway home, a sound interrupts the math. A whistle, then another answering whistle, then a chorus of trouble. You don't see them yet, but you know the choreography. Men whose job title is no. You shove the heavier chunk of paraffin into a snowbank, like it's a time capsule, and keep walking with the posture of people who own absolutely nothing of interest. One of your companions hums a hymn as camouflage. You want to shush them, but rhythm sometimes bribes fate. The patrol rounds the corner. 4 coats, 4 hats, 4 expressions that say today, we will be gods in someone else's kitchen. They scan faces like barcodes. The tallest steps into your personal space and asks the timeless question, what's in your coat? You invent a cough. The cough invents a phlegm subplot. He grimaces, steps back, fear of disease is the last democracy, and waves you on with 2 fingers, the same way you wave away smoke that belongs to someone richer. You don't breathe until the building accepts you again, until the stairwell smell is your smell and not the world's. When you unload the paraffin onto the table, you feel the room change shape. Shoulders lift, necks lengthen. For 30 seconds, people are taller. You shave curls into the pot, thinner than before, the water a greedy mirror. Someone sprinkles in a pinch of salt with the reverence of a magician wasting his final trick. The soup is clearer than you want, but it steams like an argument you're winning. Bowls move hand to hand. You sip. Warmth arrives with a driver's license. The taste is cleaner than the candles. Less church, more chemistry. But you don't gag. No one does. For a moment the house is almost a house again. Somebody tells a joke that only remembers the idea of being funny, and yet the sound that follows includes laughter wearing borrowed shoes. Then footsteps. Not the door this time. Above. A rush, a tumble, a cry that slices the ceiling thin. You stand so fast your knees complain in 3 languages. The cry comes again, sharp and small, and the soup goes down wrong in your collective throats. You are running before anyone agrees to run. On the 3rd floor landing, 3C's door yawns open. The apartment smells like cold metal and defeated water. The old woman who lives there sits on the floor like a fallen statue, hands bloodless on her knees, eyes lost in the wrong century. Beside her the child, 8, 9, holds a hand to a split eyebrow, blood bright as a holiday you don't celebrate anymore. Ice from the roof has punched through the window. The floor is a glittering catalogue of failure. You kneel, press cloth to skin. Murmur lies about, "It's small, and it will stop, and you're brave." And for once the lies do a good job. The bleeding slows. The child's breathing evens. They're shivering in the aftershock, and your coat does arithmetic. Lose heat, win human. You wrap them anyway. The old woman whispers about roofing tar and angels with dull wings. You nod like you can file that. Back downstairs, the paraffin pot waits, patient, almost kind. You portion another ladle and give it to the child. They sip, make the face everyone makes, then sip again. The old woman refuses at first, then caves to the gravity of warmth. You watch their color flirt with returning. It's not a miracle, it's a nudge. And while you're watching them, you feel it. Eyes on the window, a shape at the margin of the glass, a shadow that knows your name without ever hearing it. A glove on the pane, polite as frost. Tap, tap. The stranger from the drainpipe doesn't knock exactly. They announce. You can see the crooked arm even through the blur, the angle that your crowbar taught it. The room freezes around the stove's weak breath. The child stops mid-sip. The old woman's prayer leaks out between her teeth. The 3rd tap spells a single simple word in your head. Again. The 3rd tap lingers in your skull like an echo trapped in bone. Everyone in the room stares at the window, as if staring hard enough could erase what's outside. The frost glass blurs the figure, but the outline is undeniable. Thin, hunched scarf wound tight, and that crooked arm, a permanent accusation. They've found you again, and this time they don't look like they're leaving without something more. The child whimpers softly, the sound small enough to be swallowed by the silence, but sharp enough to split it. You motion for quiet, finger pressed to your lips, as if silence could make you invisible. But the shadow doesn't care about invisibility. The glove taps again, louder this time. 1, 2, 3, insistent, hungry. Your stomach knots. You can still taste the wax soup you swallowed too quickly, thick in your throat. You wonder if the stranger can smell it, if hunger gives them a predator's sense for meals already eaten. You glance at the floorboard where the last stub is hidden, at the pot still steaming on the table. Not much, but enough to bargain. Enough to survive tonight if you're willing to give it away. The others look to you, always to you, as if you were voted leader in a democracy no one attended. Their eyes say it plainly. Decide for us. Do you risk angering the shadow by refusing? Do you weaken yourselves further by sharing? Survival isn't just about food anymore. It's about politics, about debts, about enemies who refuse to stay strangers. You move slowly to the window. Each step feels like walking across a frozen lake, afraid the ice will crack under you. The shadow leans closer, breath fogging the glass. For a second, you see their eyes. Not desperate this time. Determined. That's worse. Desperation can be bargained with. Determination makes its own rules. You slide the latch and open the window a hand's width. Cold air floods in, biting your skin. The stranger doesn't wait for words. Half, they rasp, their voice raw, scraping like stone on stone. You swallow. Half of what? They gesture with their good arm, toward the pot, the smell of paraffin broth drifting out into the night. Their meaning is clear. Not candles this time. Soup. Tonight's survival. Behind you, someone gasps. Someone else mutters, "No, we can't." The room trembles with the weight of protest, but no one dares speak louder than a whisper, because they all know the truth. The stranger outside is not just a beggar. They are a promise. Refuse and they'll return again. Or worse, bring others. You look back at the pot. Its thin broth barely clinging to the sides of the bowl, but to the starving, it's gold. To the stranger, it's enough reason to keep knocking until the wood splinters. You feel the choice press against your ribs like a blade. Share and weaken yourselves. Refuse and risk war. The silence stretches, cold and suffocating. Finally, you dip the ladle into the pot. One bowl. You raise it to the window, steam curling up like surrender. The stranger's eyes flash, relief, triumph, maybe even mockery. They reach in, crooked arms stiff, and take it carefully, as though handling treasure. For a moment, their gloved hand brushes yours. Cold, thin, human. They don't thank you, of course they don't. They just drink right there at the window, lips chapped and trembling as the soup vanishes in greedy gulps. Wax drips down their chin, but they don't stop. They drain it dry, then slam the bowl back onto the sill. Empty. A message in itself. I'll be back when I'm hungry again. And then they vanish into the snow. You close the window, latch it tight, and step back. The room exhales as one, but the relief is bitter, because everyone knows what just happened. You didn't feed an enemy. You fed a shadow that will never stop returning. A shadow that knows you have something to give. The pot is lighter now. The bowls you hand out are thinner. The soup barely coats the bottom, forcing people to scrape the enamel for traces. They swallow anyway because refusing is impossible, but their eyes cut into you. Quiet blame, quiet fear. You feel it burn hotter than hunger in your chest. That night, sleep doesn't come. Not for you, not for anyone. Every creak of the building, every gust of wind against the window, every distant footstep in the snow feels like the stranger returning. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the next tap. When dawn finally creeps in, grey and tired, you know two things. The candles won't last, and neither will your silence. Morning doesn't feel like morning anymore. It's just greyness, rearranged into a slightly different shape. You wake with your stomach aching in that familiar way. Not sharp, not empty, but hollow, like a drum skin stretched too tight. The room smells faintly of last night's paraffin broth, a ghost of grease clinging to the air, reminding you that even survival leaves stains. No one speaks, not out of secrecy, but out of exhaustion. Words cost energy, and energy is the one currency more valuable than wax. People shuffle quietly, pulling blankets tighter, rubbing numb hands, pretending to sleep longer just to avoid facing another day of less than nothing. The silence is broken only by the occasional cough, the scrape of a chair leg, the slow creak of the building itself groaning under the weight of winter. You sit at the table, eyes on the drawer where the remaining candles lie hidden. 3 whole ones, 2 stubs. That's all. 5 meals between all of you, if you stretch them thin enough. A week at best. You do the math automatically, then hate yourself for it, turning people into fractions, life into subtraction. But math doesn't care about dignity. The others notice where you're staring. They notice everything now. Their eyes follow yours to the drawer, then flick away quickly, as if looking too long might make them guilty of wanting more than their share. You wonder if anyone else has their own secret stash. A stub hidden under a mattress, a piece of wax buried in a pocket. You wouldn't blame them. You almost hope they do, almost, because soon the stranger will be back, and when they come knocking or tapping, you'll have to decide again, and maybe next time it won't be soup they ask for. Maybe it'll be a whole candle, or 2, or all. Hunger has a way of inflating its demands until refusal feels like blasphemy. The decision gnaws at you until you can't sit still anymore. You grab your coat, mumble something about air, and step outside into the brittle morning. The snow crunches under your boots, the sound sharp in the silence of the city. Your breath fogs out in clouds, disappearing into the same void everything else seems to. You walk without direction, just moving to move, letting the cold slap your face awake. The streets are empty, but emptiness isn't safety. Every alley feels like an ambush, every window like a spying eye. You keep your head down, hands shoved deep in your pockets, coat pulled tight. Eventually your feet take you back to the church. The door is shut but not locked. You push it open, the hinges groaning like tired bones. Inside, the air is colder than outside, but it smells of something: wax, smoke, dust. Familiar. The caretaker is there again, sitting near the front, his face lost in the shadow of his hood. He doesn't move when you enter, doesn't greet you, doesn't scold you. He just watches. You walk down the aisle slowly, your eyes scanning the side altars. The trays are filled with candles again. Not many, but more than nothing. Stubs lined up like soldiers who lost their battles. You hover a hand over them, just like last time. The warmth of recent prayers still lingers, faint but real. You imagine those prayers, whispered desperately into the smoke. Protect my son, bring my husband back, let the hunger pass. And here you are, ready to scrape them into soup. The caretaker coughs softly. Again? His voice is dry, cracked, but not surprised. You hesitate. We need it. He studies you, his eyes sharp despite the hollowness of his face. Then he nods. Slow. Take what's broken. Leave what's whole. Relief floods through you. You gather the smallest stubs, your fingers trembling as you pocket them. It isn't much, barely enough for a thin broth, but it's something. Something to buy one more night. As you turn to leave, the caretaker speaks again. You know they'll come. You stop. Who? He doesn't answer right away. His eyes drift toward the door, toward the snow-covered streets beyond. When he finally speaks, his voice is low, almost lost in the echo of the church. Hunger follows hunger. Once it knows your door, it never forgets the way. You shiver, not from the cold this time. You thank him anyway, though the words taste bitter, and you leave quickly, the sound of his warning chasing you back into the streets. By the time you return, your pockets heavy with wax stubs, the others are waiting. Their eyes widen at the sight, relief sparking for just a moment before it dims into the usual mixture of gratitude and guilt. They don't ask where you got them. They don't need to. Everyone knows there's only one place left that still gives away hope for free. The pot comes out again. Water boils. Wax curls into it, melting into cloudy streaks. The smell rises, clinging to the air, to your clothes, to your very skin. You sit at the table watching, waiting, your mind repeating the caretaker's words. Once it knows your door, it never forgets the way. And as the soup is ladled out, as spoons scrape against bowls, you can't shake the feeling that tonight the tapping will return, louder, hungrier, unstoppable. The broth burns your lips even though it's barely warm. It's not the heat that hurts, it's the memory. Each sip tastes like every other sip you've ever taken in this famine, a repetition so constant it could be carved into stone. Wax, water, salt, if you're lucky. The flavors of survival. And every time the spoon touches your tongue, you wonder how long before you forget what real food tasted like. The others eat in silence. The scraping of spoons against enamel bowls is louder than conversation, louder than breath. No one talks anymore during meals, because meals aren't meals, they're chores. Something you force yourself to do, like cleaning, like patching holes, like burying the neighbor's dog when it freezes solid in the street. You eat because not eating is death, and that's the only choice left. When the bowls are empty, when the last streaks of wax are scraped away, the silence grows even heavier. People drift back to their corners, to their blankets, to their endless waiting. The child curls up under a threadbare coat, their lips still greasy from soup. The old woman mutters to herself, words too soft to catch, a conversation with ghosts. You sit by the window, staring at the frost forming patterns like broken maps. Your reflection stares back at you, pale and hollow, lips cracked, eyes ringed dark. You almost don't recognize yourself. Hunger doesn't just shrink bodies, it rewrites them. It carves out cheeks, stretches skin over bone, sharpens every angle until you look less human and more like a sketch of one. Your hand drifts to the floorboard again, to the secret hollow beneath it. Only one stub remains there now, your private reserve, your insurance against despair. You don't tell the others. You can't. Secrets feel heavier than hunger, but sometimes they're the only thing keeping you upright. The day drags. Hours crawl by without meaning. Outside, the snow falls steady, muting the world into silence. You close your eyes and imagine it covering everything. Streets, houses, even memories, until nothing remains but white emptiness. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad. Then evening comes. The sky dims, the shadows stretch, the air grows colder, and with it comes the sound you've been dreading. Tap. At first you tell yourself it's just the wind, a branch against the glass. But the window is bare. No branches, no trees, just frost and emptiness. Tap, tap. The sound is deliberate this time, steady, measured. You know it instantly. The stranger, the crooked arm, the hunger that won't stay gone. The others look up, their faces tightening, their spoons still in their hands even though the bowls are empty. No one moves. The child hides their face in the old woman's lap. Someone mutters a curse. Another whispers, "Not again." But the sound continues. Tap, tap, tap. You stand, because someone has to. Your legs feel heavy like dragging stones, but you move toward the window anyway. The shadow waits outside, blurred by frost but unmistakable. Thin shoulders, scarf pulled high, eyes glinting in the dim light. They raise their good hand and tap once more. Softer this time, almost polite. You unlatch the window slowly, cautiously, and open it a crack. Cold air surges in, carrying the scent of snow and smoke. The stranger leans closer, their breath fogging the glass. "More," they rasp. The word is simple, but it cuts like a blade. Not please, not help, just more. A demand, not a request. Behind you, the others hiss. "We can't. There's nothing left. Shut it, shut it." Their fear buzzes in your ears like flies. But the stranger doesn't blink. Their eyes burn with a hunger so deep it doesn't leave room for mercy. You feel the stub beneath the floorboard like it's calling to you. One candle. Enough for one more bowl. Enough to silence the tapping. Enough to buy peace for tonight. But at what cost? Every stub you give away weakens you. Every bowl you hand over makes the stranger stronger. And every time you say yes, it becomes harder to ever say no. The silence stretches, thick and suffocating. Your breath clouds the air. The stranger's eyes never leave yours. Finally, you whisper, "Half." The stranger tilts their head, considering. Then, slowly, they nod. You close the window and kneel by the floorboard, pulling it up with trembling fingers. The stub feels small in your hand, almost weightless. You cut it in half with a dull knife, the wax crumbling under the blade. One piece for you, one for them. That's the compromise, that's survival. When you open the window again, the stranger's hand darts out, seizing the piece like a predator snatching prey. They tuck it into their coat without a word. Then they vanish into the snow, silent and sudden, as if the night itself swallowed them whole. You close the window, latch it tight, and sit back. The others stare at you, their faces a mix of relief and resentment. No one thanks you. No one speaks. The silence feels heavier than ever, and deep down, you know the truth. Tonight's compromise isn't the end. It's just another invitation, because hunger doesn't keep promises. Hunger always comes back. Night returns wearing yesterday's face. The building settles into its nervous chorus, pipes ticking, wood sighing, wind slip-picking at the window like a thief testing locks. You sit on the floor with your back to the stove, palms open to the last ribbons of heat, pretending the glow is stronger than it is. The room is a museum of almosts. Almost full bowls, almost warm hands, almost slept people. You tell yourself boredom is mercy. Boredom means nobody is pounding on the door. Nobody is counting your spoons. Nobody is measuring your breath for taxation. Then the boards creak above you, and mercy feels like a rumor again. You try to inventory the future, which is hilarious. One candle cut in half, 2 whole candles left. A faith loan from the church you will have to repay with silence. A stranger who treats the window like a service hatch. A city that treats hunger like weather. The child murmurs in their sleep, small fists unclenching and clenching as if they're arguing with an invisible rope. The old woman mouths prayers without vowels. Somebody near the door coughs once, then holds the second cough in their chest like contraband. Even your breathing feels loud enough to fine. You shift to the window and wipe a circle through frost with your sleeve. Outside, milk-grey night and the soft suggestion of snow that won't decide whether to fall or hover. You study the black seam of the alley, the drainpipe, the sill where a gloved hand has learned a rhythm that owns you. No tapping yet. You feel the silence like a held note that refuses to resolve. If it stays quiet, you whisper to the glass, "I'll sleep." The glass does not sign the contract. The glass remembers your signatures mean nothing when hunger edits the terms. To keep your hands from inventing panic, you give them work. The knife, the candle. The shallow tin dish you pretend is a cutting board. You shave slow curls, catching each ribbon before it can escape. The scent is hospital clean, a parody of comfort. You picture a nurse saying this won't hurt while the world happens to you anyway. Someone pads closer and sits without asking, knee to knee, sharing your slice of cold. My mother used to say wax is for lamps, they murmur, and for saints. You nod like that's still a category, saints, when all you meet lately are survivors and witnesses. Footsteps in the hall. The doorknob trembles like a tooth. Everyone straightens in bed the way people do when trouble passes, pretending to be a breeze. The steps continue, descend, vanish into the stairwell's brick throat. The room slumps. You collect the curls into a paper cone and tuck it under the stove for morning, pretending you've invented savings. A thin argument starts near the shelf, whether to boil another pot now, whether to keep the last whole candle for a day when the sky decides to be crueler. You step between sentences before they harden into sides. We sleep first, you say. You make it a law because no one else will. Sleep is obedient for 5 minutes and then reveals itself as hunger with a mask on. You float through a dream that isn't creative. A table, a roast, a knife that glides. You slice meat, and it reforms as candles. You set your plate in front of you and the wick is a vein. When you cut it, the candle bleeds light. You wake with your mouth full of the idea of flavor and swallow a sound so nobody asks what you tasted. The room is darker than rooms should get, as if electricity has taken offense and exiled itself. Tap 1, thoughtful as a librarian. Tap 2, less polite. Tap 3, the word you've been learning in a language you hate, now. You don't move right away because not moving lets you borrow 3 more seconds of a world where you are not about to bargain away your health. Then you stand. The floorboards accept your weight like a secret. The others open their eyes without lifting their heads. The child curls tighter. The old woman presses a hand to her chest like she's hailing an invisible cab. You unlatch the window and crack it. Cold reads your face and writes its opinion on your skin. The stranger's eyes hover inches from yours, hungry but calmer than last time. The crooked arm is splinted now, wrapped in cloth torn from something once finer. Lace from a curtain, maybe. Dignity from a life. Half, they whisper, making the words sound like ritual instead of theft. You consider closing the window, consider shouting them into an absence, but hunger is an institution, and institutions prosecute. We split the last curl, you answer, and pass them the paper cone, pinching out 2/3 for your pot, and pretending the arithmetic is fair. Their gloved fingers brush yours. Cold, bone, intention. They tuck the share into their coat like contraband prayer, and hesitate, eyes flicking past your shoulder toward the sleeping shapes, toward the old woman's hand that won't leave her chest. Sick? They ask. It's not cruelty. It's inventory. Breathing, you say. The lie isn't complete. They nod once. From their pocket they pull something you don't understand at first, a twist of paper. They drop it onto the sill and step back. Trade, they say, softer than their tapping voice. You snatch the twist into the dark and close the window fast, like generosity might change its mind and reach back in to steal itself. You unfold the paper near the stove's ember glow. Inside, crumbs the size of eyelashes, dark and miraculous. Coffee, not a cup, not even a swallow. The scent hits the room like a hymn with a backbeat. Heads lift. Someone laughs without permission from grief. You set a pan on the grate, add snow, add the crumbs, stir like a witch with excellent boundaries. The water browns itself into a rumor of mornings you used to own. You share the liquid in thimble sips. It isn't bitter, it's memory. It isn't sweet. It is merciful. The old woman takes hers last, holds it beneath her nose as if breathing it might stitch something. I remember, she says, and no one dares ask what. The child licks the rim, eyes closing with an adult's sophistication. You wet your own lips, and your body remembers a word it had archived. Awake. The stranger's shadow is gone by then, but their decision lingers like a puzzle. Mercy, leverage, or a down payment on the next knock. When the pan is empty, relief loosens the room into stories. Short ones, the kind you can carry if you have to run. You lie down with your coat still on so you can tell yourself you haven't surrendered to sleep, just loaned it your posture. You don't expect rest to come back paying interest, but it does. You drop through exhaustion like a trapdoor and land in quiet. You wake to quiet too, a clean quiet, not the kind that follows shouting. Outside, snow has finally chosen. Fall, slow and theatrical. The window wears lace that isn't lace. The city has been wrapped by a grandmother who forgives and forgets selectively. Your first thought is inventory, and you hate it. Your second is the paper twist. You fold it and hide it with the candle shavings, like proof that the world occasionally returns small things. For breakfast, you boil water and pretend it is broth with aspirations. The child asks for a story, and you give them one about a saint who forgot they were a saint and learned to be useful instead. Halfway through, you hear boots, but they pass. You hear a shout, but it's joy somewhere else. You hear tapping and realize it's only snow flirting with the pain. Your shoulders loosen an inch. You pour the last of last night's warmth into the morning and watch everyone sip it like it has a secret. Then the door knocks. Not the window, not the hall's wandering cough. The door. 3 times. Steady, neither urgent nor lazy. You glance at the others and see your own thought mirrored. Not them. But who? You move the chair, lift the bolt, open to a slice of white and a figure bundled in municipal brown. A courier? A clerk. Their hat has a badge that used to mean something. They hold a clipboard, like it keeps them alive. Ration audit, they say, eyes sliding past you into rooms they plan to memorize. Behind you, bowls gleam clean. The stove grins empty. The drawer of candles is a mouth you forgot to close. You think about the half curl under the stove, the coffee ghost, the stranger's splintered arm, the caretaker's warning. The building holds its breath again, old lungs, new fear. You smile with all the honesty wax can buy. Come in, you say, and step aside like you rehearsed hospitality in a better life. You're already rearranging the morning in your head. What to hide, what to spill, which version of the truth has the fewest teeth. The clipboard crosses the threshold. The pencil sharpens itself. The air thins into paperwork. And somewhere outside, behind a lace of falling snow, light keeps pretending it's free. The man with the clipboard doesn't smile. Of course he doesn't. Smiling is banned unless it's official. He steps into the room like he owns the floorboards, the air, your lungs. Snow clings to his coat and melts instantly, dripping onto the warped wood. He writes something on his paper before saying a word, and the scratching of the pencil sounds louder than the stove ever did. Behind you, the others straighten, their bodies stiffening into mannequins of obedience. The child hides behind the old woman's skirt, peeking out with wide eyes. The smell of last night's wax broth still lingers, faint but damning, like a crime scene you forgot to clean. The man clears his throat. Ration check. By order. His voice is flat official, designed to erase argument before it's born. He gestures with the pencil. Candles. Where are they? Your pulse spikes. You glance at the drawer, at the hidden floorboard, at the pot still smeared with wax. Every answer you could give feels like a lie, even the truth. You swallow and gesture vaguely toward the drawer. There. That's all we've got. He moves toward it with slow authority, every step making the boards creak as if announcing his power. He pulls it open. Inside, 2 candles, pale and plain, sit in the corner. Not much, but enough to count as survival. He writes something down, expression unreadable. Then he turns. More. The word drops into the room like a stone into ice water. We don't, you start, but he raises his hand to cut you off. His eyes are sharp, his jaw clenched. More, he repeats, this time with the certainty of someone who knows you're lying. We had reports. Reports. The word feels poisonous. Reports mean someone is watching, someone is talking, someone is surviving at the cost of your silence. Your mind flashes through suspects. The stranger, a neighbor, the caretaker at the church, or maybe just someone who saw steam rising from your chimney and smelled hope. The man steps closer, pencil tapping against the clipboard. We don't have time for games. Show me what you've hidden, or I'll search. The silence in the room turns sharp. The others look at you again, as if you were the appointed liar, the elected sacrifice. Your throat feels dry, your hands clammy. The stub beneath the floorboard burns in your memory. The secret half you swore you'd keep safe. If he finds it, the punishment won't just be confiscation. It'll be worse. You force a breath. There is nothing else. His eyes narrow. He sets the clipboard down on the table with deliberate care. The pencil clicks against the wood. Then he moves toward the stove. He bends down, inspecting the ashes, the soot, the faint oily sheen left by melted wax. His fingers trace the blackened edges. He stands, turns back, and his mouth twists into something that almost looks like a smile, but it isn't. It's accusation. You're making soup, he says flatly. The others flinch. The child buries their face. Your chest feels like it's caving in. It's survival, you whisper. It's illegal, he snaps. His voice cracks like a whip, the sound bouncing off the walls. He grabs the clipboard again, scribbling furiously. Candles are for light. For the community, not for this. His eyes sweep the room with contempt, as if you've betrayed more than law. As if you've betrayed the idea of civilization itself. You feel the heat rising in your chest, not from anger but from shame. Shame that you've been caught. Shame that you've been reduced to this. Shame that your survival is a crime. The others look at you, waiting for you to speak, to argue, to beg. But the words stick. The man slaps the clipboard shut. We'll be back, he says, cold and final. Keep nothing hidden. Or next time, it won't be a check. It'll be confiscation. His eyes linger on you for a heartbeat too long, heavy with warning. Then he turns, coat sweeping, boots crunching against the floor as he leaves. The door slams behind him, the echo vibrating in your chest long after he's gone. Silence crashes down again. Not the silence of hunger, the silence of fear, of realization. You're no longer just surviving in secret. You're being watched, you're being measured. Every flicker of light, every wisp of smoke, every spoon scraping a bowl is evidence against you. The old woman finally speaks, her voice a brittle whisper. They'll take it all. You look at the drawer, at the floorboard, at the pot, and you know she's right, which means the question is no longer, how do we eat? It's how do we hide? You don't talk for a long time after the door closes. No one does. The air is full of broken pencil dust and threats that didn't bother to wear uniforms. The clipboard man left a dent in the morning like a heel in wet snow, and now even your thoughts try to tiptoe around it. Finally, the old woman coughs, a brittle sound, like two sticks arguing, and that's permission for the room to breathe again. Hide, she repeats, voice paper thin but decisive, before he returns with pockets to empty us. Hiding is not mysterious. Hiding is tedious. Hiding is a craft. You move like a crew repairing a ship already underwater. The drawer gets emptied, then refilled with nonsense. A chipped saucer, a spool of thread without thread, a folded piece of nothing important. The last whole candle is shaved into curls and tamped into a tin labeled buttons. A joke so dry it might catch fire. The floorboard cache becomes a relay. You shift the hollow 2 planks over, leaving sawdust like breadcrumbs only you can read. The child draws a star with charcoal on the new plank, because secrets like saints want icons. Next you fix your smell. Wax has a smell, clean and guilty. You burn a pinch of coffee crumbs in a spoon, letting the bitter smoke advertise a different poverty. You rub onion on the stove's lip until the metal wears a cheap disguise. Someone waves a damp rag through air like they're baptizing it. You all end up smelling like we cooked once years ago. It's almost comedy. Almost. The plan for eating turns into choreography. Boil late when most eyes are tired. Ladle fast, wipe faster. Stack bowls upside down so the thin paraffin film glues them to the shelf like obedient soldiers. Save nothing obvious. Save nothing shiny. You even make a rule for laughter. If it shows up uninvited, smother it. Happiness is contraband now. Afternoon redrafts itself as errands in code. You go for air, which means the church. Someone else goes to check on 3C, which means the tram depot fence. A third goes to look for string, which means news. Your job is the caretaker. The knave is colder than honesty, and the candles today are stingier than yesterday's. Still there are ends, prayer fragments, nubbins you can pinch without stealing hope wholesale. The caretaker watches you the way a parent watches a child count coins they plan to donate back. When you reach for a stub crooked with lipstick smear, he clears his throat. Reports, he says, as if it were a sermon topic. The word scratches you worse now that you've heard it in official lips. You should be ash by now. I prefer warm, you answer, a joke that deserves to be arrested. He doesn't smile exactly. His face organizes itself around mercy, the way old buildings organize around cracks. There's a back sacristy, he says, looking at a statue as if speaking to it. Closet with hymnals in languages no one sings. Behind them a crate that used to hold oil. It holds regret now, and a few candles past their prime. He pauses. Regret leaks. Use a basin. You find the closet by scent alone. Old ink, old leather, the soft mildew smell of forgotten faith. Behind the hymnals, the crate. Its lid complains as if it misses being useful. Inside, candles with bruises, warped by summers, faintly tacky with age. Perfect. You line your coat with them like you're bricking yourself in light. Before you close the lid, you slide one back as tithe. The arithmetic of gratitude matters, even to atheists with empty bowls. When you return, the house listens for your steps. You unload the warp candles to a chorus of eyes, not voices. Everyone is better at silence than anything else now. You demonstrate the basin trick, shave by the water, skim the surface sheen, catch the regret before it escapes as testimony. The old woman approves with a monarch's nod. The child tries to whistle and produces something like a kettle learning to speak. News arrives with the string seeker. Patrols doubled near the depot, the fence fixing itself with men and wire. Someone traded a wedding ring for a sack of coal the size of a toddler. Someone else tried to sell information and discovered that buyers prefer information that hurts strangers more than them. A rumor takes its coat off and sits down. The ration office is relocating, and relocations mean inventories, and inventories mean visitors with clipboards who think soup is a political argument. So you escalate your hiding. You invent decoys. One candle is sacrificed to the theater of innocence. You place it, whole and pious, in a saucer on the shelf, visible, countable, a decoy for auditors who like easy addition. The usable wax travels inward, into the spine of books between pages nobody reads because reading is a luxury you mislaid. You melt drops along the seam, then reshelve the hymnal, so it says faith on the outside and calories on the inside. You wedge a sliver under the loose tile by the wash basin, then scatter grit so it remembers to look uninteresting. Evening sidles in wearing a grey scarf and an apologetic wind. You light nothing. You sit with the room's darkness like a guest who arrived early and won't take hints. Stomachs speak subtitles. You wait for footsteps that don't come, for tapping that might. Instead, you get a knock at exactly the hour fear likes best. Not the door. Window. 3 knuckles. Unhurried. Claiming history. The drainpipe claimant is punctual. You move before anyone nominates you. Habit, democracy, tyranny of helpfulness. The latch is colder tonight. When you crack the window, the cold enters like management. They're closer than before, crowding the sill with a face carved down to purpose. The splint is neater now, a ribbon of fabric cut from something soft as sleep. Half, they whisper, the word a ritual coin that buys entry to your pulse. You nod, because the ritual saves debating, and your energy is a finite currency. Half of curl, you say. No bowls, smell brings wolves. A concession, disguised as a rule. They consider you eyes like lanterns with no oil. Then they pull a pouch from inside their coat and set it on the sill. It clinks with a small, shocked sound. Metal? You open it with fingers that forgot how to expect. Not coins. Washers, screws, a bent nail, 2 buttons with histories. Useless to your mouth, priceless to your stove leg that wobbles, to your door that begs for a second hinge. Trade, they say, with something that could almost put on the clothes of please. You divide the curl by weight of conscience, pass their half across the cold. They nod once, businesslike. Audits? They ask, as if you shared an office. Today, you answer. He smelled survival. Their mouth twists. They like lists more than people. A sentiment so accurate it could file taxes. You close the window on truce and screws and the new knowledge that enemies can be colleagues when the bureaucracy is the dragon. The room exhales without cheering. You set the hardware aside like a dowry for furniture and return to the basin. The soup that follows is thinner than rumor, but it warms the lane from teeth to spine. You portion. You police. You pretend it's enough. Halfway through pretending, the hallway picks a fight with your door. Boots. Many. The kind that drum. Voices. 2 authority tones, 1 clerk, 1 enthusiastic amateur. You sweep bowls into shadows like casino chips after a raid. The old woman covers the child with the kind of love that looks like smothering. You wipe your mouth with the back of your wrist until it burns. The knock is not a knock. It's a verdict, performed in percussion. Inspection, a voice declares, the word already victorious. You lift the bolt with hands that hope to pass as innocent. The door swings to reveal the clipboard man, now with companions, and an expression that decided sleep is for citizens. He doesn't bother to step in. He occupies the threshold like a law. Eyes do the quick math of shelves, stove, faces. His pencil hovers. Any consumption since this morning? He asks, and the question includes its answer in its spelling. Your mouth opens. The old woman beats you to sound. "Tea," she says, bland as wallpaper. You admire the way she lies like a grandmother, with verbs that apologize for existing. "Show me," he says. You hold up the pan, its water brown from burnt coffee remembrance, a smell still clinging to the metal like a cheap alibi. He sniffs, writes, moves on. "Candles?" You gesture to the decoy saucer, then to the drawer with its curated poverty. He counts aloud, a lullaby for tyrants. 1, 2. His pencil scratches a fraction that might be your life. Then he squats by the bookshelf, fingers on spines. He chooses at random, which is the worst kind of luck. He pulls a hymnal, the wrong hymnal, the one with your future cooled thin along its gutter. He flips it open. Pages stick for a second, then sigh apart. Your heart stops and volunteers to be evidence. He frowns, rubs his thumb against a faint smear he notices, lifts the book to his nose. He inhales. You invent prayer on the spot. It has no words. It has only the shape of please. The clipboard man inhales again, nose wrinkling, eyes narrowing. He smells something. Wax. Or maybe just old paper. You can't tell. But his expression is enough to freeze the room into statues. The old woman's lips move soundlessly, praying to every god that accepts wax instead of incense. The child buries their face in her shawl, muffling a whimper. You clench your fists in your pockets, willing your heartbeat to shut up before it gives you away. He flips through a few pages. The hymnal crackles. Dust floats in the cold air like guilty confetti. Then, miracle or mercy, he snorts, mutters mildew, and slams it shut. The wax smear is invisible enough, ordinary enough, to be mistaken for decay. He shoves the book back onto the shelf with the care of someone who doesn't care at all. You want to collapse right there, knees giving out in relief, but you don't. Because he's still here. He's still sniffing, still writing, still measuring lives in pencil strokes. He circles the room once more, boots loud on the boards. He glances at the stove, taps it with his knuckles. Cold, he notes. He looks at the bowl stacked neatly upside down. Clean, he writes. Every word he says feels like a verdict carved into stone. Finally, he turns to leave. 2 candles, 1 stub, recorded. His voice is flat but final. He tucks the clipboard under his arm and gestures to his companions. They follow, their eyes roaming greedily one last time before they step into the hall. The door closes. The echo lingers. Silence returns, but it's poisoned now. No one moves until the sound of their boots fades down the stairwell, swallowed by the building's groans. Then the old woman exhales so loudly it's almost a sob. The child uncurls, blinking. Someone mutters, "Saints save us." Someone else mutters, "Saints are hungry too." You lean against the wall, palms slick with sweat, knees shaking so badly you have to grip the table to stay upright. That was too close. Too close. The hymnal almost betrayed you. The bookshelf almost ended you. You picture what would have happened if he'd scraped deeper, if he'd pressed harder, if his nose had been sharper. The thought makes bile rise in your throat. The others look at you with wide eyes. Not gratitude, not relief. Something harder, something closer to blame. Because you're the one hiding the wax. You're the one making the decisions. You're the one who almost got everyone caught. They don't say it, but their silence does. It screams louder than words. You sit down hard, head in your hands. The soup in your stomach feels like lead. The coffee-scent smoke clings to your clothes, making you gag. You want to sleep, but sleep won't come. Not after this. Not after watching law brush so close to discovery. Hours pass in a haze. Evening creeps in, dragging cold behind it. No one speaks. No one dares boil water. The stove remains empty, a black mouth refusing to open. Hunger gnaws, louder than ever. But fear wins. Tonight you go without. Tonight even wax is too dangerous. The room shivers together in the dark. Blankets pulled tight, bodies curled small. The child whimpers once, then falls silent. The old woman's lips move endlessly, prayers stitched together like a blanket of words. You stare at the ceiling, your eyes tracing cracks until they blur into constellations. Sleep comes eventually, but it's shallow, fragile, full of dreams of pencils scratching on paper. Then, tap, your eyes fly open. The sound is unmistakable. Not boots, not fists, not clipboard authority. The window, the stranger. You sit up slowly, your breath fogging in the cold. The others stir too, recognizing the sound immediately. Fear flickers across their faces. "Not tonight," someone whispers harshly. "We can't." But the tapping continues. Insistent, steady, hungry. You move to the window. Frost paints the glass, but the shadow is clear. The crooked arm, the scarf, the eyes gleaming like coins in the dim light. They lean close and you hear it, muffled but sharp. Half. The word again. The word always. The ritual demand. You shake your head. "Nothing," you whisper through the glass. "We can't. They came. They searched." The stranger tilts their head. They don't blink. They tap again, louder. The sound rattles the panes. Behind you, the old woman hisses, "Shut it. Send them away." The child begins to cry, muffled in her shawl. The others mutter curses, prayers, pleas. All of it blends into noise. But outside, the tapping cuts through it all. Relentless. You feel the stub beneath the new floorboard hollow burning a hole in your mind. You swore it was untouchable. You swore it was the line you wouldn't cross. But now the tapping feels like fate demanding payment. You grip the sill, knuckles white. You stare into the stranger's eyes. You whisper, "No." For the first time, their expression changes. The eyes narrow. The shadow stiffens. Then slowly they raise their crooked arm and slam it against the glass. The window shudders violently. The others gasp. The child screams. The stranger leans close, their breath fogging the pain, their voice a growl you'll never forget. "Tomorrow." Then they vanish into the snow. You slam the latch shut, your heart pounding so hard it hurts. Behind you the room erupts. Fear, anger, accusations. The old woman sobs. The child wails. Someone curses your name. But all you hear is the echo of that word. Tomorrow. The promise of hunger. The promise of return. The promise that silence and hiding won't be enough anymore. And deep inside, you know, tomorrow, the knocking won't stop at the window. It'll come for the door. The word tomorrow follows you into daylight like a debt collector. You wake with it still echoing in your head, louder than the crack of the stove cooling in the night. The others don't mention it, but you can see it written across their faces. The fear, the accusation, the gnawing knowledge that the shadow at the window made a promise, and promises are worse than threats. Breakfast doesn't happen. No one dares boil water. No one dares shave wax. The pot sits dry, a mute witness to your collective starvation. The child asks softly, "Nothing today," and no one answers, because lies are too heavy to carry this morning. The old woman strokes their hair, humming a hymn too broken to be recognized, her voice cracking like frozen branches. The silence is suffocating. Even the walls seem to lean closer, listening. You feel the stub under the floorboard, calling like a buried secret, whispering that you could end this emptiness at least for today, but you don't move, because if you give in now, there'll be nothing left when tomorrow comes, and tomorrow is closer than it's ever been. You step outside instead, into the brittle light of day. Snow crunches underfoot, and the cold slices into your lungs like glass. The streets are emptier than ever, as if the entire city heard the stranger's promise and decided to hide. Doors shut tight, windows shuttered, chimneys smoking less and less. Everyone is hoarding. Everyone is hiding. Everyone is afraid. You walk toward the church, more out of habit than hope. Inside, the caretaker is there, sitting in the same pew as always, a statue carved from grief. He looks up when you enter, his eyes sharp. "You came back." You nod. "I don't have a choice." "No one does," he murmurs. He gestures to the altar. The trays are nearly empty. A few stubs, wax melted into puddles too small to scrape. "The city is running dry," he says. "Faith burns faster than supply." You hover your hand over the stubs, but pull back. Too little, too obvious. "They came to our door," you whisper. "With papers, with lists. They counted. They smelled the stove." The caretaker's mouth tightens. "Audits," he spits, the word bitter. "They're not counting candles. They're counting obedience. And you failed." Your chest tightens. "What do you mean?" He leans closer, voice low. "You made soup. You fed mouths the law says should starve. And someone saw. Someone spoke. Reports don't appear from thin air." The words hit like a slap. Reports. Informants. Betrayal. You think of the stranger at the window. The neighbor who traded bones for wax, the clerk with the badge. Anyone could have spoken. Everyone has a reason. Hunger makes traitors of us all. Then what do I do? You ask. The question comes out raw, almost childish. The caretaker studies you, his gaze heavy with pity and warning. You hide better, or you stop hiding and fight. You laugh, sharp and bitter. Fight with what? Candles. He doesn't smile. Fight with what they can't take. Fear, silence, unity. The words taste hollow. Unity is a luxury no one can afford. Silence is already your only language. And fear? Fear is everywhere. You leave the church empty-handed, the caretaker's warning ringing in your ears. The streets feel heavier on the way back, the air thicker. Every shadow looks like the stranger. Every sound feels like boots. By the time you reach the stairwell, your hands are shaking, your breath ragged. Inside, the others are waiting. Their eyes flick to your empty hands, then away again. No one asks what you found, they already know the answer. The old woman mutters something about saints abandoning the city. The child curls tighter into their blanket. The silence deepens. You sit by the stove, staring at the blackened mouth. Hunger gnaws at you from the inside, sharper now that you've admitted there's nothing left to soften it. Your body feels weak, bones grinding under thin skin. Your mind drifts in and out, imagining meals that don't exist, flavors you'll never taste again. And then, boots. The sound slams into the room like a hammer, heavy, coordinated, coming closer. The stairwell amplifies it, turning each step into thunder. Everyone freezes. The old woman clutches the child. Someone whispers, "Not again." The boots stop at your door. A pause. Then, knock. Not the stranger's polite tapping. Not the clerk's measured rapping. A knock that is both command and threat. You don't move. No one does. The silence is louder than the knock itself. Then the voice comes. Cold, flat, familiar. "Open!" The clipboard man. Back already. You glance at the floorboard, at the stove, at the empty bowls. There's nothing left to hide, but the fear of being searched again grips you like chains. Another knock. Louder, more insistent. "Open!" the voice repeats. The others look at you, always at you. Their eyes burn with fear, with anger, with expectation. Your hand hovers over the bolt, and you know this time tomorrow came early. The bolt feels like it weighs 100 pounds. You press your palm against it, but your hand refuses to move. On the other side of the door, the clipboard man waits, his voice still echoing in the wood. Open. You wonder if he's smiling. You wonder if he ever smiles, or if the only joy he knows is watching people flinch. The others whisper behind you. Don't. We have nothing. They'll take even the walls if we let them. The old woman's voice cuts through, hoarse but sharp. Better to open than to have it broken. Her words fall heavy, undeniable. You know she's right. They don't need your permission to enter. They only ask as a courtesy, the way a wolf might wait before tearing into meat. Your hand shakes as you slide the bolt back. The door creaks open, and the clipboard man steps in with two companions. Their boots are wet with snow, leaving dark prints on the floor. His eyes sweep the room, calculating, cold. He doesn't greet you. He doesn't need to. "Candles," he says flatly. "Now." You gesture toward the drawer, already empty except for the decoy you left there. He pulls it open, sees the single stub and frowns. "One? That's all," you say, your voice steadier than you feel. He doesn't believe you. You can see it in the way his eyes narrow, in the way his pencil scratches against the clipboard. "We've had reports," he repeats, that cursed word again. "Reports of excess. Reports of soup." The room tightens around you. No one speaks. No one breathes. He steps closer, close enough that you can smell his coat. Damp wool, ink, cold air. "If we find you've been hiding, the punishment won't be confiscation. It will be removal. Removal." The word tastes like iron in your mouth. Removal doesn't mean relocation. It means vanishing. It means no one asking questions afterward. It means gone. The child begins to whimper, a small sound quickly muffled by the old woman's hand. The clipboard man's eyes flick toward them, then back to you. "Search," he orders his men. They move fast, pulling blankets, overturning chairs, yanking open drawers. The stove is prodded, the bookshelf rifled through. You feel your stomach twist as one of them grabs the hymnal again. This time, though, they toss it aside carelessly, uninterested. Relief washes over you, so sharp it hurts. Then one of them stomps near the floorboards. Your breath catches. He bends, runs his hand along the cracks. You see his fingers pause. Press. Test. Loose, he mutters. Your heart slams against your ribs. The others freeze, their eyes darting between the floorboard and you. You want to scream at him to stop, to leave it, to look anywhere else. But your mouth won't open. The clipboard man crouches now, brushing his hand over the same spot. He knocks once. The hollow sound betrays you instantly. He looks up, his eyes like knives. Here! Panic explodes in your chest. You step forward before you realize what you're doing. Wait! His men grip your arms, shoving you back. You thrash desperate, but their hold is iron. The clipboard man pries at the board, the wood groaning. Then, crack! It lifts. The hollow yawns open, revealing the stub you swore you'd protect. The stub you swore was untouchable. The stub you swore was salvation. The clipboard man plucks it out delicately, holding it up between two fingers as if it were diseased. Contraband, he says simply. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. The word itself is a sentence. The others groan, some in despair, some in fury. The old woman sobs openly, clutching the child tighter. The men holding you shove you harder against the wall. Your breath comes ragged, tears stinging your eyes, not just from fear but from shame. The clipboard man tucks the stub into his coat pocket and straightens. We warned you, he says. Reports don't lie. Next time, there won't be warnings. He slaps the clipboard shut with a crack that echoes like a gunshot. Prepare yourselves, audits are increasing. And just like that, he turns and leaves, his men releasing you as they follow. The door slams and their boots fade down the stairwell. The silence that follows is unbearable. The others turn on you. Their eyes blaze with fury, with betrayal, with hunger sharpened into hate. Someone spits at your feet. Someone else whispers, "You doomed us." The old woman won't look at you, rocking the child back and forth like a broken clock. You stumble to the chair, sinking into it, your hands trembling. Your secret is gone. Your authority is gone. And worse, you've given the clipboard man proof. He'll be back. He'll always be back. Outside, snow falls steady, covering the footprints they left behind, erasing the evidence of their visit. But inside, nothing is erased. Nothing is forgotten. And tomorrow feels closer than ever. You sit in the chair like it might sentence you. The room hums with a low, angry electricity. No shouts, just the kind of silence that bruises. The old woman rocks the child with a rhythm older than laws, older than audits, older than hunger. Someone sweeps at a clean patch of floor because doing nothing feels like dying faster. You look at the gap, where the floorboard used to hide your last promise, and feel the raw hole in the wood echo the raw hole in your chest. The clipboard man took a stub of wax, sure, but what really hurts is what he left. You, exposed. Nobody says your name. They don't need to. Blame pulses toward you like heat off a stove you can't afford to light. You think of defending yourself, about the patrols, the reports, the stranger at the window, the arithmetic of impossible choices. But justification is a meal that feeds only the speaker. Your mouth closes on the speech before it's born. The child peeks over the old woman's shawl, eyes big, asking a question without words. Is there still a tomorrow? You try to nod. Your neck refuses to lie convincingly. Dusk lays a thin hand on the window. The city outside looks powdered in forgiveness it doesn't own. You stand up because sitting feels like surrender with a cushion. I'll fix the board, you hear yourself say, like carpentry can solve politics. A neighbor hands you a bent nail from the stranger's pouch, proof that even enemies sometimes invest in your survival. The sound of hammering is embarrassingly loud in the room, each tap announcing we still intend. You fit the plank back imperfectly, a scar that admits to history. The old woman watches, not approving, not condemning, just measuring if a scar can keep out winter. When the board is down, everyone does the newest math. Inventory of nothing. 2 hides of wax in books. A decoy saucer that is now a joke without a punchline. The smell of yesterday's soup still tattooed on the stove lip. You speak before anyone else can weaponize breath. No more caches, you say. Not under us, not anywhere they can knock and hear hollow. It's a policy like a blanket with holes, still warmer than the air. Heads nod because the nod costs less than debate. Someone suggests boiling water just to drink something hot. No wax, just heat. You agree because agreeing is cheaper than courage. The pot sings a thin note as snowmelt blushes toward warm. Steam lifts, trying to be smell, then gives up. Each person takes a sip like applying salve. You cradle the tin cup and count heartbeats as if you can audit your own pulse into obedience. That's when the stairwell speaks again. One set of feet this time, quick but not authoritative, the tempo of rumor carrying itself. A knock, gentle, almost embarrassed, rattles the door. Everyone freezes on instinct, then relaxes half a muscle because dictators don't knock gently. You open to 3C's old woman's nephew, the runner, the one with news for sale and lungs like bells. Patrols at the depot are busy with a cart that broke an axle, he whispers, eyes skittering over shoulders for eavesdroppers. If you need anything, the word stretches to include the unsayable, now is the gap. He spots your faces and amends the pitch, or tell others who can carry. You feel anger rise, petty and bright. We can carry, we have carried, we are the people who need. But pettiness wastes heat. You press the cup into his hand, a bribe made of warmth. Spread it, you say. Not to sell, to warn. He nods, drinks, coughs, runs, becomes stairwell. The door closes. The room argues with its eyes. Opportunity tastes like frost, bright, sharp, brief. You could reach the depot, risk the wire, pocket shavings, return as heroes for an hour. Or you could open the window to fate again and trade with a shadow that says half in the key of inevitability. You think about the clipboard man timing the distance between knocks. You think about removal tasting like iron. You think about tomorrow, the debt collecting word. Your decision arrives in your mouth before your head stamps it. We split, you say. 2 groups. One to the depot fence, one to the church. No lights. If you see hats with lists, you turn to snow. They follow because plans sound like oxygen. You take the church team, fewer steps, more memory. The night is a hallway narrowing around your breath. Street lamps glow like embarrassed moons. Your boots write sentences in the snow that the wind edits immediately. A kindness. The church door opens at your touch, as if it also decides to be on your side. The caretaker is there, naturally, man and furniture. He watches the small crowd behind you and nods like he's been rehearsing this approval for a season. Back, he says, and leads you not to the sacristy, not to the crate, but to a ladder. You climb to the loft where dust is thick enough to be called history. There, cradled in a trough like a sleeping animal, is a broken Advent wreath, 4 stubs, 1 bent taper, a ribbon that once knew the word anticipation. You touch the wax. It yields with a tired grace. We were saving them for a night worth lighting, he murmurs. But nights don't ask permission to be worth it. You meet his eyes, a transaction conducted without math, and begin untying ribbon from memory. The group works in whispers and tenderness, a kind of liturgy. You portion 2 stubs to pockets, leave 2 with him, make promises your body has no right to make. On the way home, you cut through the alley where the drainpipe watches windows like a jealous relative. The pane in your apartment glows with the weak theatre of boiled water. You signal once the way fishermen do, the way wolves do. The shadow appears without the courtesy of surprise. Tonight the splint is wrapped cleaner, a strip of cloth with flowers faded into ghost pink. They tap, but softer like punctuation. You open a crack. Half, they say, because grammar comforts. You hold up 2 fingers. Trade, you reply, because evolution. You show them the bent nail, the empty tin, the ribbon. They consider, then pass through the gap a tiny wrapped something, brown paper, string, hope-sized. Inside the paper, a sugar cube, chipped imperfect, radiant as blasphemy. For 1 choking second, the room becomes a cathedral to sweetness. The old woman covers her mouth, makes a sound that embarrasses the air. The child leans forward like a flower towards sun. You snap the cube into slivers with a knife that can't believe its assignment and drop a shard into each cup. Chemistry performs salvation. Heat plus sugar equals memory that fits on a tongue. Someone cries without apology. You put the last shard aside on the sill like a talisman. The stranger nods once, a priest of scarcity, and disappears down the drainpipe into the grammar of night. When the cups are empty, nobody mentions the clipboard man. Nobody says removal. The words lose interest when there's sweetness on breath. You replace the floorboard with intention, wedge the bent nail like a vow. The plan for tomorrow is not glorious. No rebellion, no feast. Just more walking, more hiding, more arithmetic done in whispers. But something tilts almost imperceptibly. The room remembers it's a room for people, not specimens. The child falls asleep mid-smile, an expression so small and loud it could be fined. You lie down with your coat still on, cheek against wood that learned your weight. The window fogs and clears, the city's slow Morse code for still here. In that rhythm, you finally smuggle a promise past your own suspicion. When the knock returns, door, window, clipboard, shadow, you will answer yes, but not empty-handed and not alone. You will answer with rules you wrote, with trades you chose, with songs hummed out of tune, because that is the pitch of living. Hunger is a bureaucracy, but so is hope. And tonight, brittle as it is, you filed the paperwork. You close your eyes and let the sugar ghost stay on your tongue until sleep decides to sign your petition. Somewhere further down the block, boots try to memorize a map they didn't draw. Somewhere, over the church, the loft exhales candle smell into the rafters like a stored prayer. Somewhere in an alley, a shadow holds a cup to their lips and learns the grammar of warmth. And here, in a room that keeps choosing to be a room, tomorrow is still a threat, still a ledger, still a collector. But it is also a door you might open without flinching. For now, that's enough. For now, you dream of soup that doesn't need a wick. Morning arrives with the aftertaste of sugar still clinging to your tongue, faint but undeniable. It's absurd, really. One chipped cube split into slivers, gone in seconds, and yet your body treats it like a banquet. Your dreams were sweeter, your sleep deeper, your waking less heavy. Hunger is cruel, but it has a sense of humor. Sometimes the smallest scrap of joy feels like rebellion. The others stir awake around you, their movements slower, but their faces different. The child stretches with a small yawn that doesn't sound like despair. The old woman hums a tune, not a hymn this time, but something almost playful, like she remembered a melody from before the famine. Even silence feels softer, less like a noose and more like a blanket, but the hole in the floor still exists. The clipboard man's shadow still lingers in the wood. The stranger's tapping still waits outside the glass, and the word report still hangs in the air like smoke. Hope is fragile, and you know better than to trust it. You take stock anyway. 2 warped candles from the church loft, hidden carefully between hymnals. 1 bent taper, melted crooked but still edible. Shavings tucked in a tin marked with a lie. And of course the shard of sugar left on the sill, a holy relic you're almost afraid to touch. Enough for days. No, enough for moments. Maybe. The discussion begins over boiled water again, steam rising in weak curls. We can't just wait, someone says. If they come again, they'll take everything. If we go out, we'll be seen, another argues. The old woman, ever blunt, mutters, seen or not, hunger doesn't wait. It's true. Waiting has become the most dangerous habit. You decide reluctantly that you'll risk the depot. Patrols or no patrols, rumors or no rumors, there might still be shavings in the barrels, scraps left behind by hands less desperate than yours. The others don't argue. Desperation doesn't leave room for dissent. The walk there feels longer than ever. The snow is deeper, the wind sharper, the silence heavier. You keep your head down, boots crunching in rhythm with your heartbeat. Every corner feels like a checkpoint, every shadow like a spy. The depot looms ahead, its fence patched clumsily with wire, guards pacing in lazy circles. You crouch in the alley, studying them. Too many to approach head-on, too alert to sneak past. But hunger doesn't care about logic. Hunger doesn't care about odds. Hunger just whispers, try. You wait for the distraction. Patrols are predictable. They always are. At the top of the hour, one leaves his post to light a cigarette, another to piss in the snow. That leaves a gap, brief but wide enough. You slip through the fence, heart pounding, coat snagging on rust. Inside, the depot is a graveyard of crates and drums, most broken, some sealed, all dangerous. You move quickly, silently scanning for markings. There, a drum tipped on its side, the word paraffin still stenciled in faded letters. You drop to your knees, prying at the lid. It resists, then gives with a pop. Inside, crumbs, shards, dust of wax clinging to the bottom like an insult. It's almost nothing, but almost is enough. You scrape with numb fingers, collecting every sliver, every grain, every memory of a candle. The pieces pile in your pocket, pitiful but precious. You close the lid and retreat, breath ragged, ears tuned to every sound. A shout cracks the air, not at you, not yet, but close. A guard barking orders, boots crunching. You freeze, pressing yourself into the shadow of a crate. Your breath clouds in the air, threatening to betray you. Footsteps pass. Laughter. A curse. Then silence again. You wait until your lungs scream before you move. Back through the fence. Back through the snow. Back down the empty streets. Each step feels heavier, each shadow sharper. But you make it. You return to the building, to the stairwell, to the waiting eyes. When you empty your pockets onto the table, the room exhales in unison. Tiny shards of wax glittering like treasure. Not enough for a feast, but enough to pretend. The pot comes out again. Water boils, shards melt. The smell rises, faint, oily, familiar. Bowls are filled, spoons scrape, mouths swallow. It's thin, it's bitter, it's survival. But tonight, it's flavored with victory. Small, fragile, fleeting victory. The child smiles as they sip. The old woman mutters a blessing. Someone laughs. A real laugh, not forced, not bitter. And for one moment you almost forget the clipboard, the reports, the strangers tapping. For one moment soup is just soup. Then, tap. Your spoon freezes halfway to your mouth. The others look up, their faces draining of color. The sound is unmistakable. Soft, steady, polite. The stranger tap, tap, tap. You glance at the window. Frost blurs the glass, but you can see the shadow there, waiting. The crooked arm, the scarf, the glint of eyes. The child whispers, "Not tonight." But the tapping doesn't stop. You set your spoon down. Your legs move on their own, carrying you to the sill. You unlatch the window, open it a crack. Cold air rushes in, biting. The stranger leans close, their breath fogging the glass. Half. The word again. The demand again. The ritual again. You glance at the pot, at the bowls, at the faces watching you. You know what they want you to say. You know what the stranger expects you to do, and you know this can't go on forever. The word hangs in the cold air between you. Half, always half, as if survival itself is a math problem with only one answer. The stranger's eyes bore into you through the frost, steady, unblinking, a mirror of your own desperation. Behind you the room waits, every breath caught, every face pale. The child clutches the old woman's sleeve. The others glare at you, silently demanding, "Don't." You whisper, "We have nothing left." The stranger tilts their head, the crooked arm stiff at their side. They don't blink. They don't believe you. Another tap, sharper this time, a demand, not a request. Your hand trembles on the sill. You think of the depot, of scraping wax dust with frozen fingers, of running through shadows with boots at your back. You think of the clipboard man sniffing the air, prying open the floorboard, pocketing the last stub like a trophy. You think of the old woman's whispered prayers, the child's hollow cheeks, the laughter that returned for just a second tonight. If you give half now, you betray them. If you refuse, you risk the stranger's wrath. Hunger doesn't forgive insults. Hunger remembers. The silence stretches. Finally, you whisper, "No." The stranger stiffens. Their breath fogs the glass. Their eyes flash with something sharp, anger, betrayal, warning. Then their voice rasps, louder this time, carrying through the crack in the window. "Tomorrow." The word slams into you like a fist. You flinch, and so does the room. The child whimpers. The old woman sobs quietly. The others mutter curses. But the stranger doesn't wait for your answer. They slam their crooked arm against the window once, hard enough to rattle the frame, then vanish into the snow. You slam the latch shut, heart pounding, hands shaking. The silence that follows is suffocating. The others stare at you, their eyes burning. Someone whispers, "You doomed us." Someone else mutters, "They'll come back." You sit down hard, your legs weak. You know they're right. The stranger will return, and next time they won't settle for tapping. The room doesn't sleep that night. Every creak of the boards, every gust of wind against the wall, every distant bootstep in the street feels like the beginning of an attack. The child cries softly until their voice goes hoarse. The old woman mutters prayers until her words blur into nonsense. The rest just sit in silence, eyes open, waiting. When morning comes, no one says good day. There are no good days left. You boil water again, thin and empty, just to trick your stomach into silence. The others sip it without comment, without expression. Even the child doesn't ask for more. Then, the stairwell. Boots, Heavy. Too heavy to be the stranger. Too many to be chance. You freeze, cup halfway to your lips. The others stare at the door, faces pale. The old woman clutches the child tight. The knock comes. Not polite, not hesitant. Hard, sharp, official. You don't move. No one does. Then the voice calls out cold and flat, "Inspection!" The clipboard man. Again. Your stomach drops. Twice in 1 week. That means suspicion. That means reports. That means someone is watching you closer than ever. The others hiss, whispering frantically. Hide the pot. Move the bowls. Cover the child's mouth. You shove the pot aside. Tip the cups into the cracks of the floor. Wipe your mouth with your sleeve. By the time the bolt slides back, the room is spotless. The clipboard man steps in with 2 guards. His eyes sweep the room sharp, hungry. He doesn't greet you, he doesn't scold, he just looks. Looks at the stove, at the drawer, at the bowls, at the floor. His pencil scratches against the board, each stroke a nail in your coffin. Candles? He asks. You gesture vaguely toward the drawer. He pulls it open. Empty. His frown deepens. Soup? No, you say quickly. Only water. He sniffs the air, steps closer to the stove, runs his fingers along the edge of the pot, brings them to his nose, his eyes narrow. He smells it, the faint trace of wax. Illegal, he mutters. His pencil scratches again. Reports were correct. Your chest tightens. Silence, he snaps. His eyes are cold, hard, final. Next time we confiscate. Everything, including you. The words slice through you. The guards smirk faintly, already picturing the scene. The clipboard man tucks his notes under his arm, turns and leaves without another word. The door slams. The silence that follows is unbearable. The others turn on you instantly. Their eyes blaze with fury. The old woman spits the word, "Fool." Someone else hisses, "You've killed us." The child just stares, wide-eyed, their silence sharper than any curse. You try to speak, to defend yourself, to argue, but the words don't come, because deep down, you know they're right. The stranger said tomorrow, and tomorrow is already here. The room feels smaller after the clipboard man leaves, as if the walls are leaning closer to eavesdrop on your shame. The others don't shout. They don't need to. Their silence is sharper than knives. You sit at the table, staring at your hands, at the dirt under your nails, at the way they tremble. They're not just angry with you, they're afraid of you. Afraid that your choices are curses that call inspectors and strangers to the door like moths to a flame. The child whispers, "What happens now?" The question cracks the silence like ice breaking on a river. No one answers, because no one knows. You press your palms against your eyes, trying to block out the weight of it, but the word keeps echoing. Tomorrow. The stranger's promise. The clipboard man's threat. Both circling like vultures, waiting for your body to collapse. Tomorrow isn't a day anymore. It's a predator. Night comes early, draping the room in darkness that feels heavier than blankets. You don't light the stove. You don't boil water. Hunger curls inside your stomach, gnawing, but no one moves. No one dares. It's as if the whole house has agreed. Better empty than caught. You lie awake, listening. Every sound is magnified. The creak of boards, the whistle of wind, the distant bark of a dog. But what you're really listening for is the tapping. And then it comes. Tap. You flinch. The others sit up, wide-eyed, faces pale. Tap. Tap. The child buries their face in the old woman's shawl. She rocks them, whispering prayers under her breath. Tap. 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 You force yourself to the window. The frost blurs the glass, but the shadow is clear. The crooked arm, the scarf, the eyes gleaming in the dark. Waiting. Demanding. You open the latch a crack. Cold air rushes in, sharp and merciless. The stranger leans close, breath fogging the gap. Huff, they rasp. The word slices through you. Huff of what? There's nothing. Nothing but fear. Nothing but silence. You whisper, "We have nothing." The stranger tilts their head. Their eyes harden. Their crooked arm rises, slamming against the glass so hard it rattles. The others gasp. The child screams. The stranger leans closer, their voice a growl. "Tomorrow," they repeat. Then they vanish into the snow. You slam the window shut, heart hammering. The silence that follows is unbearable. The old woman sobs. The child whimpers. The others glare at you with hatred sharper than hunger. Someone spits the words, "You should have given it." Another mutters, You've cursed us all. You sit down hard, burying your face in your hands. You want to argue, to shout, to blame the clipboard man, the stranger, the reports. But deep down you know the truth. They're right. You've trapped them between law and hunger, between inspectors and shadows, and there's no way out. Sleep doesn't come that night, not for anyone. The room hums with fear, every creak of the boards making everyone flinch. You sit by the window, staring into the snow, waiting for boots, waiting for tapping, waiting for tomorrow. When dawn comes, grey and heavy, no one moves. No one speaks. The silence is thicker than hunger. You feel it pressing down on you, suffocating, and then boots. The sound slams into the stairwell, heavy, coordinated, many. The child begins to cry. The old woman clutches them tight. The others stare at you, their eyes burning. The boots stop at your door. Knock. Not the stranger's tap, not the clipboard man's measured rap. A heavy, pounding knock that rattles the wood. You don't move. Another knock. Louder. Harder. "Open!" a voice barks. Not the clerk this time. A different voice. Deeper. Angrier. The others look at you. Always at you. Your hand hovers over the bolt. And you realize tomorrow isn't coming. It's already here. The pounding on the door is different this time. Not official, not polite, not even methodical. It's raw, angry, the kind of knock that comes from fists that don't care if they bleed. The wood shakes under the assault, the bolt trembling like a tooth in a dying mouth. The child wails. The old woman rocks them, whispering useless comfort. The others glance at you, eyes wide, faces pale, waiting, always waiting, because you're the one who has to decide. Again. You whisper, "Don't move." Your voice is steady, but your chest is chaos. The pounding grows louder. Whoever's outside isn't leaving. You glance at the window, half expecting to see the stranger's shadow there too, watching, waiting, smirking. But the glass is empty. It's only the door tonight, only fists, only rage. "Open!" The voice bellows again, deeper now, closer to breaking. You slide the bolt back, slow, careful, every movement heavy with dread. The door creaks open. 3 figures stand in the stairwell. Not officials, not patrols, neighbors. You recognize them instantly. The man from 2B with the crooked nose, the woman from 4A with her scarf tied too tight, the gaunt boy who runs errands for anyone who pays in crumbs. Their faces are hollow, their eyes wild. The man shoves forward. "We know you have candles." His voice is raw, cracked, but filled with certainty. You shake your head. "We don't." "Liar," the woman spits. "We've seen smoke. We've smelled it." Panic claws at your throat. You want to scream that it's not true, that it's scraps, that it's barely survival. But lies don't matter. Hunger doesn't believe lies. Hunger only believes itself. The boy's eyes dart past you into the room, landing on the stove, on the bowls, on the faces staring back. His lips curl. You've been eating. The others behind you stir, muttering, shifting. The room feels smaller, hotter, suffocating. You raise your hands. "We've got nothing left, nothing worth stealing. Look for yourself." The man doesn't wait for permission. He pushes past you, stomping into the room. The woman follows, the boy at her heels. They search like wolves, pulling blankets, kicking at corners, yanking open drawers. Their hunger fills the space, heavy and feral. The old woman clutches the child tighter, rocking back and forth, whispering frantic prayers. The others press themselves against the walls, silent, powerless. You stand frozen, every muscle screaming, as your neighbors tear through what little you have left. Then the boy finds it, the shard of sugar forgotten on the sill. His eyes widen, his hand snatches it up, and he holds it aloft like treasure. "See?" he shrieks. "They're hiding food!" The room erupts. The man snarls, lunging for the table. The woman shrieks something about thieves and traitors. The boy cradles the sugar to his chest, eyes blazing with triumph. "No!" you shout, grabbing for it. But he twists away, his thin frame slippery, his hunger stronger than your grip. The shard disappears into his mouth, crunched between his teeth, swallowed in seconds. His eyes close, his face transformed for one fleeting moment into something close to joy. Then the man grabs you. His fists slam into your chest, your stomach, your jaw. Pain explodes white-hot, dropping you to your knees. The woman kicks the stove, sending it crashing sideways. spilling soot across the floor. The child screams. The old woman wails. "Your neighbors aren't searching anymore. They're destroying, tearing, punishing. Stop!" You choke out, blood on your lips. "Please, we have nothing." The man's fist cracks against your temple, and the world tilts sideways. You hit the floor, vision swimming, ears ringing. The chaos continues around you, shouts, sobs, crashes. Then, silence. Not peace, not calm. The silence of exhaustion. When your vision clears, you see them at the door again. The man, the woman, the boy. The boy's lips are still sticky with sugar. They're leaving, their faces hard, their hands empty, except for the satisfaction of having broken you. The door slams behind them. The room is wreckage. The stove lies on its side, useless. The bowls are shattered, blankets torn. The old woman rocks the child, both of them sobbing. The others stare at you, their faces full of something worse than blame. Despair. You push yourself upright, your body screaming, your blood dripping onto the floor. You whisper, "I'll fix it." No one answers, because there's nothing left to fix. And somewhere, in the silence, you know the truth. This wasn't the stranger. This wasn't the clipboard man. This wasn't tomorrow. This was today, and tomorrow is still coming. The room smells of soot, sweat, and failure. You stagger upright, wiping blood from your mouth with the back of your sleeve. Your hands shake, not just from pain, but from something heavier. The realization that the enemy isn't just outside anymore. It's next door. It's upstairs. It's everywhere. Hunger has made neighbors into wolves, and wolves don't apologize. The stove lies on its side, a black mouth full of ash, its legs bent like broken bones. The old woman rocks the child in her arms, both of them shivering, sobbing. The others drift through the room in shock, their movements slow, mechanical, as if trying to pretend that cleaning the mess might undo it. Someone gathers shards of bowls. Someone else lifts torn blankets, shaking dust into the air, but the silence between them all is deafening. You kneel by the stove, pressing your palms against the cold metal, willing it back into usefulness. "We can fix it," you whisper, though even your own voice sounds unconvinced. You reach for the bent nail from the stranger's pouch, try to wedge it into place, but it slips from your fingers and skitters across the floor. Useless, like everything else. "They'll be back," someone mutters. You look up. Their faces pale, eyes hollow. The neighbors, the inspectors, the stranger, everyone. They'll all be back. No one argues, because it's true. The night stretches on, heavy and endless. You sit by the broken stove, staring at the ashes, too afraid to sleep. Every creak of the boards makes you flinch. Every gust of wind against the window sounds like tapping. Every distant bootstep in the stairwell is another inspection. But the night passes. Somehow. Morning comes, grey and bleak, filtering through broken glass. The child coughs, a hollow sound that echoes through the room. The old woman presses a cloth to their lips, her hands trembling. "We need warmth," she whispers. "We need something." You look at the wreckage of the stove, at the bent legs, the scattered soot. You look at the others, their faces gaunt, their eyes desperate. And you know, something has to change. Waiting is death. Hiding is death. Doing nothing is death. You gather the group, your voice raw but steady. "We can't stay like this. The clipboard man will return. The neighbors will return. The stranger will return. We need to move." "Move where?" someone asks, their voice sharp with disbelief. "There's nowhere. The city is dead." "Not everywhere," you insist. "There are places." Whispers. People trading. People surviving. We've heard it. The depot. The church. The old factory by the river. They say there's a group there, pooling what they have, keeping watch. The old woman shakes her head. "Rumors. Maybe," you admit. "But better rumors than starvation." The room falls silent. The others glance at one another, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. Fear sits heavy in the air. But slowly, reluctantly, heads nod. Not out of hope, out of desperation, out of the knowledge that staying means death. The decision is made. You spend the day preparing what little you have. Blankets torn into strips, the warped candle stubs from the hymnals, tucked deep into pockets, a chipped cup, a bent spoon. The shard of sugar is gone, swallowed by the boy from upstairs, but its memory lingers, a reminder of why you can't stay. When night falls, you slip into the streets. The snow crunches underfoot, muffling your steps, swallowing your footprints as fast as you make them. The city is silent, broken buildings looming like skeletons, windows hollow eyes staring down. Every corner feels like an ambush. Every shadow feels alive. You move quickly, huddled together, breath fogging in the cold. The child whimpers softly, but the old woman hushes them with gentle murmurs. The others glance around constantly, their fear thick in the air. You lead, your heart hammering, your eyes scanning for movement. Then voices, ahead, low, murmured. You freeze, motioning for silence. The group presses against a wall, holding their breath. Figures move in the distance, shadows shifting through the snow. You can't see their faces, but you hear their words. Found candles in the church loft. Clipboard men doubling inspections. Tomorrow the factory. Your blood runs cold. They're talking about the same things, the same rumors, the same survival. But are they allies or scavengers? The figures vanish into the night. You wait, heart pounding, until the silence returns. Then you move again, faster this time, heading toward the river. The factory looms ahead, a black silhouette against the grey sky. Its windows are shattered, its roof sagging, but smoke drifts from one of its chimneys. Smoke, real smoke, not rumor, not imagination, proof. The others see it too. Their eyes widen, their pace quickens. Hope flickers, small but alive. You reach the door, a massive iron thing, half rusted, half frozen. You pound on it with your fist, the sound echoing. For a moment, nothing. Then, a voice from inside. Who's there? You freeze. Words fail. But then you whisper, raw and desperate. Hungry. Silence. Then the sound of bolts sliding back. The door creaks open. Light spills out. Warm, golden, impossible. You blink against it, your eyes stinging. The others gasp. The child covers their face. Inside, figures stand in the glow of lanterns. Lanterns, real flames. A table, bowls, steam rising from a pot. The smell hits you, rich and thick and unbelievable. Food. Actual food. A man steps forward, his face gaunt but alive, his eyes sharp. He studies you, studies the group, studies the desperation carved into your bodies. Then he nods. Come in, he says. You step through the door, into the light, into the warmth, into the impossible. For the first time in forever, tomorrow feels like something other than a threat. Warmth is a violence when you've been cold too long. It rushes your skin and your skull at the same time, a tidal wave that makes your eyes sting and your legs remember how to tremble. The factory's air smells like smoke that chose mercy, like boiled grain and metal worked by hands that still expect tomorrow. Your group hesitates on the threshold, the way wild animals hesitate at a lit doorway. Then the child steps first. Of course they do. And the rest of you flow in behind, pulled by heat as if it were gravity. Inside, order pretending to be chaos. Lanterns hang from pipes with wire loops. Blankets make walls where walls gave up. In the corner, a barrel stove coughs orange. Its flue a patched spine of tin. People glance up and then look away again. The etiquette of disaster is to not stare at new arrivals until they stop looking like lost ghosts. The man who opened the door has a leader's posture, without the leader's arrogance. Shoulders square, feet quiet, eyes doing arithmetic. He gestures you toward a table made from a door on sawhorses. Sit, he says, and the word feels more like permission to be human than an instruction. Bowls appear. Real ones, chips, yes, but whole. Steam curls out of them like punctuation marks you thought extinct. The liquid is cloudy with something that isn't just wax. You lift the spoon. The smell trips memories you were sure the famine had deleted. Barley, a rumor of bones that belonged to an animal and not a candle, onion whispering that it still exists somewhere out there. The first sip doesn't fix anything. It just interrupts the slow collapse. Your body remembers swallow as celebration, and you have to blink fast to keep it from turning into sobbing. No one speaks for the first 5 mouthfuls. That's the rule here, you infer. Eat before you think before you thank. Only when the burn inside you changes from pain to warning, careful, you're not used to this, do voices arrive. Name exchange is brief and practical. The man is called Marek. The woman who ladles is Ilona. The grey-haired electrician who keeps the lanterns honest is Branik. A handful of others nod with the wary politeness of people who traded surnames for survival. You give your own name, and it sounds thinner than your throat expected. We keep watch in 4 directions, Marek says, eyes flicking to a chalkboard where someone has drawn a clock with teeth. 2 on the roof, 1 at the river door, 1 at the street. Rotations every hour. We sleep in shifts. We work in longer shifts. He points to a line of crates. Sorting, rope, wire, hardware. Wax if you find it. Tallow if you're blessed. Everything that burns, everything that fixes. We pool, we portion, we don't hoard. The last sentence lands like a brick on an old bruise. A murmur moves through your group. The old woman pulls the child closer, protective habit anchoring her even in warmth. You feel everyone's eyes on you without anyone quite looking. We don't hoard. Your hand drifts to your pocket, where a single warped church stub lies like a confession. You place it slow on the table between you and Marek. His face doesn't change. He nods once and slides it toward a crate labeled Fuel in chalk that used to be handwriting and is now policy. Ilona sets down a second ladleful, and with it the price of being fed. We have rules, she says simply. Not to make life small. To keep it. She ticks them off with the spoon. No lights visible from the road. No door opened alone. No bargains with inspectors ever. She pauses just long enough for the word to sting. And if you trade with the alley, her eyes lift, pin you without malice. You trade for the house, not for your pocket. You feel the room tilt just a little, as if the floor has opinions about your history. The stranger's tapping appears in your head like a rhyme you can't shake. We traded screws, you say, honest because lies cost calories, and coffee ash, and sugar. The last word is a sacrament and a sin. Brannick actually smiles, the kind the famine hasn't confiscated yet. Sugar is a story, he says. It keeps people alive even when it doesn't keep them alive. Marek leans in. The alley will come here too. Nothing that eats ever forgets a map. If they knock, we don't pay tribute. We trade. We make the exchange clean, witnessed, written. He taps the chalkboard. A column reads, Ledger. Beneath it, someone has recorded absurd miracles in careful letters. Hinge for wick, bone for barley, needle for salt. You imagine adding half curl for screws. You imagine a window tapped with patience and not threat. You imagine the clipboard man's pencil snapping when it tries to categorize this. Your second bowl is slower. Warmth now feels like information, not just comfort. You scan the hall. On pallets by the wall, 2 bodies sleep with mouths slightly open, not dead, just surrendered. A teenager with a scarf wrapped turret-tight around their head is winding string from a ruined loom onto cardboard spools, currency printed by abrasion. Someone at a workbench is melting candle stubs into a tin mold, pressing in a cotton wick the thickness of a promise. Community disguised as chores. When the bowls are cleared, Marek stands. You brought danger with you, he says without cruelty. Everyone does. Danger follows food like a dog with good ears, that's why we test. The word stiffens your spine. Test means you can fail. He leads you to a side room, smaller, warmer, the steel guts of the factory wearing quilts. On a crate sits a bell wired to a door, a string of clinking washers, and a pane of glass set into the wall at head height, looking out over the street like a square moon. We practice answers, Marek says. Different knocks, different scripts. If we get them wrong here, we learn. If we get them wrong out there, he lets the sentence end, where your imagination understands it. Ilona knocks 3 times on the inner door. Light, light, heavy. Neighbor in need, she says. You answer according to instinct. Half. Your own voice surprises you with how quick it chooses the ritual. Ilona shakes her head. Neighbor in need gets a bowl and a job, not half of ours. Half multiplies enemies and divides tomorrow. Again, different pattern, different answer. Patrol knocks with the rhythm of orders. You answer with absence. Everyone freezes, no sound, no light. Inspector knocks with ego. You answer with paperwork of your own. Marek hands you a stamped slip that says, allocation delayed in purple ink, that looks official if you don't know what purple ink costs. By the 4th drill, you are sweating in warm air, pulse misbehaving as if it can't tell rehearsal from the world. A whistle blows from the main hall. 2 short, 1 long. The roof watches. The factory changes posture without panic. Bowls vanish under cloth. Lanterns turn their faces to the wall. People slide into the shadows between machines that haven't worked in months, but still know how to shelter. Marek moves to the pane and you follow, breath held hostage by your ribs. Outside, snow listing sideways, street empty, river wearing the color of pewter. Then a figure resolves along the fence line, small in the cold, patient where most things hurry. Your stomach knows them before your eyes do. The crooked arm, the scarf with the flowered strip. The way they move like the drain pipe taught them gravity is optional. The alley has found your new map. They don't come to the big door. They don't pound like neighbors hungry for punishment. They tap the glass of the pane you stand behind as if distance were a joke. Tap, tap. The sound is almost soft enough to be memory. In the reflection you catch your face, thinner and sharper and suddenly, somehow, ready. Ilona doesn't reach for the ladle. Marek doesn't reach for the bolt. Instead, he reaches for the ledger and a wrapped bundle, the kind of package you hand a person you intend to see again. Rule of the alley, he murmurs. We offer work first, trade second, charity never. You want to keep them from coming as wolves? Make them come as partners. You nod because the nod costs less than fear and buys more than pride. You lift the latch on the side hatch, a slot big enough for parcels, small enough for safety, and slide it open. Cold says its opinion and then shuts up. The stranger's eyes find yours through the glass. They don't look furious, they look curious, which is more dangerous and more promising at the same time. You hold up the bundle, curls of wax wrapped in paper on one side, a coil of wire, and 2 screws on the other. Half for half, you say, and your voice doesn't shake. Fuel for fix. You work our door hinge. We fill your bowl here. You point to the ledger, then to your eyes, making witness with your face because ink isn't always enough. A long second stretches, the kind that can become a fight or a future. The stranger glances at the hinge, a sag with history, and then at the steam ghosting from the covered pot. Hunger makes decisions, and pride negotiates the terms. They slide a hand through the hatch, not to grab the food, but to take the screws first. The crooked arm moves slow, deliberate, practiced, splint and stubbornness cooperating. You pass the wire, then wait, the way you wait for a match to agree with a wick. They crouch by the hinge in the snow, working with the unsentimental focus of people who know how to make small things matter. Inside, the room holds its breath without freezing, an organism testing a new organ. The washers ding softly as the door lifts a fraction, then settles truer, less complaint in its swing. The stranger looks up at you again. You lift the lid an inch. Aroma says hello. They blink once. Approval, gratitude. The grammar is new and then they tap the glass with 1 knuckle, not 3. A different word. Maybe deal. You hand the bundled curls through. They take them without greed, tucking the packet deep as if it were a letter with an answer in it. The ledger receives a new line in purple pencil. Hinge repair, wire and screws for wax, bowl witnessed. The bell by the inner door doesn't ring. The inspectors don't appear. The neighbors don't pound. The world impossibly tolerates this small treaty. Marek exhales, the sound half relief, half strategy. Tomorrow, he says, and for the first time in a season, the word doesn't taste like a threat in your mouth. It tastes like a schedule. The stranger lifts their good hand in a gesture that means not yet farewell and fades back into the weather. A syntax of footfalls learned from roofs and drain pipes. You close the hatch, feel the door ride smoother on its new math, feel the room turn toward the pot the way plants turn toward windows. Ilona uncovers the ladle. Steam writes cursive on the air. The child grins a small, sharp, illegal grin. The old woman's shoulders drop an inch. You take the first bowl to the ledger table and set it down like an invitation to keep the rules you've decided to own. Then the whistle blows again. 1 long, 1 short. An alarm the roof team hasn't used yet. This time it isn't the alley. It isn't neighbors, it isn't footsteps that can be taught a better rhythm. On the far end of the street, grey uniforms arrive like a sentence that forgot its verbs and plans to borrow yours. Clipboards glitter wet in the snow. You look at Marek. He looks at you. Positions, he says. And you move. The grey uniforms march like punctuation marks ending a fragile sentence. Their boots crush the snow in rhythm, steady, merciless, the kind of rhythm only bureaucracy can keep. Clipboards flash in their hands, black gloves holding pencils sharper than knives. They don't hurry. They don't need to. Authority walks at its own pace, knowing everyone else must adjust. Inside the factory, the whistle's echo still rings. Marek moves with sharp efficiency, barking orders without raising his voice. Lanterns down, covers on, hide the bowls, children to the back. The room obeys instantly. Rehearsed, practiced. This isn't the first time the inspectors have come, it won't be the last. But tonight feels heavier. Tonight you've just made a treaty. With the alley, with hunger itself, and now the law is here to annul it. You help cover the pot, draping a blackened cloth over it until the steam disappears like guilty smoke. The smell lingers, rich and dangerous, making your stomach ache with betrayal. Brannick snuffs the lanterns, plunging the hall into shadow. Ilona ushers the child and the old woman behind a stack of crates, her face calm but her hands shaking. The knock comes. Hard, sharp, a sound that expects obedience. Marek doesn't move at first. He lets the silence stretch, lets the inspectors feel the weight of waiting. Then he strides to the door, his shoulders square, his jaw set. He opens it just wide enough for his voice to pass through. "Yes? Inspection," the lead inspector says. His voice is flat, official, the same tone that visited your apartment. You flinch at the memory, at the echo of that pencil scratching your fate into paper. Marek doesn't flinch. "We've already been inspected this week." The inspector's eyes narrow. "Reports." That cursed word again. Always reports. Always someone watching, whispering, betraying. "Reports of what?" Marek asks, his tone calm, almost bored. The inspector doesn't answer. He just pushes. The door groans, but the new hinge holds. Steady, silent. The stranger's work, already tested. The inspector frowns, surprised. "Let us in," he orders. Marek blocks the doorway with his body. "You have no warrant." The inspector sneers. "We don't need one." He gestures and two guards step forward, boots crunching in the snow. Their hands hover near their batons. The factory holds its breath. Inside, shadows shift, bodies pressed against walls. Every heartbeat loud enough to betray you. You can feel the tension thick in the air, the fragile line between survival and disaster. Then Marek steps aside. "One," he says coldly. "Only one." The inspector smirks, pushing past him into the hall. His boots echo on the concrete, loud, searching. His eyes sweep the room, sharp and suspicious. He sees blankets, crates, shadows. He sees faces, gaunt but steady. He doesn't see bowls. He doesn't smell soup. Not yet. But then, his gaze lands on you. Recognition flickers. His eyes narrow. "You," he says. Your blood runs cold. He remembers. He remembers your apartment, the floorboard, the stub, the lie. "What are you doing here?" His voice drips accusation. You open your mouth, but nothing comes out. Your throat is sand, your tongue stone. Marek steps forward. "They're with us." His tone is final, unyielding. The inspector sneers. "With you? Then that makes them guilty too." He pulls out his clipboard, scribbling furiously. "Reports will reflect this. Expect confiscation." The word slams into you like a blow. Confiscation. Of what? The bowls, the lanterns, the warmth, the lives? Marek doesn't move. "We have nothing to confiscate." The inspector's eyes gleam. "We'll see." He turns, stomping back to the door. "Next week," he snaps. "We'll be back. With more." He glares at you one last time, his eyes burning with promise. Then he's gone, the door slamming shut, the echo rattling the walls. The silence that follows is heavy, suffocating. No one moves. No one speaks. The only sound is the child's quiet sobs muffled in the old woman's shawl. Finally, Marek exhales. "They'll come back," he says. His voice is low, steady, but you can hear the weight in it. And when they do, they won't just knock. They'll take. The room shifts, uneasy, restless. Ilona whispers, "What do we do?" Marek looks at you. His eyes are sharp, measuring. You've seen them before. You've survived them. What do you suggest? The question hangs in the air. Everyone's eyes turn to you. Waiting, expecting, demanding. Your chest tightens. You think of the stranger, of their crooked arm, of the sugar cube, of the screws. You think of the neighbors who broke your door, of the boy's lips sticky with stolen sweetness. You think of the clipboard man's pencil scratching your life into fractions. You swallow hard. "We make a choice," you say slowly. "Hide or fight." There's no in between anymore. The words hang there, sharp and heavy. No one speaks. Not yet. But you can feel it. The shift. The turning point. Tomorrow is coming, and this time tomorrow isn't just hunger, it's war. The word war doesn't echo the way hunger does. Hunger hums quietly, constant, always there. War comes in spikes, louder, sharper, impossible to ignore. After the inspector leaves, the factory feels like it's vibrating with the threat of it. Everyone moves in silence, but the silence is different now. Not the silence of despair, the silence of people bracing. You sit by the table staring at the ledger, its lines neat, its trades careful, its rules fragile. Wax for screws, wire for hinges, bowls witnessed. Everything measured, everything balanced. But how do you balance against boots? Against clipboards? Against removal? Marek paces, his jaw clenched, his hands tight behind his back. Ilona murmurs with the old woman, soothing the child who won't stop crying. Branik fiddles with wires, rigging alarms to bells, washers to strings. Everyone has a task. Everyone pretends those tasks are enough. You don't move, you just listen. To the sound of your own breath, to the faint hiss of the stove, to the way tomorrow presses against the door. When night falls, you volunteer for watch. The roof is bitter, wind slicing through your coat, snow crunching under your boots. You crouch by the ledge, peering down at the street. Empty, silent. But silence is never safety anymore. Hours pass. Your fingers go numb, your breath freezing in the air. Your eyes blur from staring too long at nothing. Then you hear it, tap, you flinch, whipping toward the sound. Not the window this time, the roof hatch. 3 knuckles, steady, familiar. Your stomach twists. Of course, the stranger has followed, always. You hesitate. Then slowly you unlatch the hatch. Cold rushes in, sharper than before. The stranger pulls themselves through, awkward but determined, the crooked arm stiff, the scarf wrapped high. Their eyes meet yours in the dark. Half, they rasp. The word again, always the word. But tonight, something's different. Their voice isn't just hungry, it's urgent. You shake your head. We can't. Not now. They came. The inspectors, they'll be back. The stranger leans closer, their eyes burning. Then fight. The word hits you like ice water. You stare. Fight? With what? With wax. They nod. Their crooked arm gestures toward the city, toward the streets below, toward the endless snow. Everyone. Hungry. Angry. Not just you. Their voice cracks, raw but steady. Half feeds no one, half kills slow, fight kills fast. You shiver, not from the cold, from the truth in their words. Why tell me, you whisper. The stranger's eyes narrow. Because tomorrow they come, not just to count, to take. All. And when they do, half is nothing, half is dead. Only fight is left. You stare at them, your chest tight. You think of Marek's calm voice, Ilona's rules, Branik's alarms. You think of the old woman rocking the child, of the ledger full of careful trades, of the bowls passed hand to hand. You think of the inspector's boots, the neighbor's fists, the boy's sugar-stained lips, and you know, the stranger's right. Tomorrow isn't just hunger anymore, it's war. You nod slowly. The stranger doesn't smile. They don't have the face for smiling anymore. They just tap the roof once, sharp and final. Then they vanish into the snow, leaving you with nothing but the echo of that word. Fight. You climb back down into the factory. Marek looks up from the table, his eyes sharp. What was it? You swallow. Not them, the alley, the stranger. Ilona stiffens. What did they want? You hesitate. Then you say it. Not half. Not trade. Not soup. Marek frowns. Then what? Your voice cracks. War. The word falls heavy in the room, heavier than any silence before it. The others stare at you wide-eyed, pale. The old woman crosses herself, the child buries their face. Branik mutters a curse under his breath, but Marek doesn't flinch. He just nods, slow, steady, as if he's been waiting for this moment. Then we prepare, he says. The word prepare doesn't sound like courage. It sounds like chores, like nails hammered into soft wood, like cloth torn into strips, like whispers turned into orders. The factory becomes a machine overnight, not of industry but of survival. Marek draws maps in chalk on the wall, crude squares and arrows that pretend to be strategy. 2 at the door, 2 at the roof, 1 at the hatch. Everyone else ready to move. His voice is calm, precise, but you can hear the tightness beneath it. He's not leading because he wants to. He's leading because no one else will. Ilona divides supplies. Bowls stacked, blankets cut, candles shaved. Every scrap is counted, weighed, measured. She marks rations with charcoal lines, her hands steady even when her face trembles. "No more hiding," she says to you once, softly. "If they come, everything is theirs anyway. Better we burn it ourselves than let them take it." Brannick strings wires across the doorways, attaching bells and washers. Traps that don't stop anyone, just warn. He grins faintly as he works, muttering to himself. "If they're going to kill us, at least they'll have to trip first." His laughter is thin, brittle, but it holds the room together more than silence would. The old woman sits with the child, rocking them, humming a tune that has no words. Her voice is cracked, broken, but steady. The child clutches her shawl wide-eyed, too young to understand war, but old enough to feel it pressing through the walls. "And you sharpen. Not weapons. You don't have any worth the name." A bent nail hammered into a stick. A shard of glass wrapped in cloth. A broken chair leg, splintered but heavy. Tools of desperation, not of victory. You hold them in your hands, feeling their weight, imagining how they'll sound against bone. The thought makes you sick, but sickness is cheaper than silence. Night falls, and the air thickens with waiting. No one sleeps. Everyone waits. The first knock comes soft, gentle. The alley's rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. You move to the hatch, heart hammering. The stranger's eyes gleam through the gap, colder, sharper, but steady. They don't say half, they don't say tomorrow, they just nod once, and then they vanish. A promise, a warning, both. You close the hatch, shivering. "They'll come," you whisper, "but not as enemies." Marek nods. "Then let's hope they remember that when the boots arrive." Hours pass. The factory hums with tension. Every creak of the beams, every gust of wind, every hiss of the stove feels like the beginning. People pace. People pray. People sharpen sticks that won't matter. Then, the sound. Boots. Many. The stairwell groans under their weight. The snow crunches outside. Orders barked in sharp voices. The rhythm of law approaching. The bells tinkle. The washers clink. The alarms sing their thin warning. "They're here," Brannick whispers. The first blow slams against the door. Wood shakes. Metal groans. The new hinge holding. For now. The second blow follows. Harder. Angrier. Then the voice, cold, official, merciless. "Inspection." The word is a lie. Everyone knows it. This isn't inspection. This is confiscation. This is war. Marek raises his hand. The room falls silent. He looks at you, at Ilona, at Brannick, at everyone. His eyes are steady, his voice low. "Remember, we don't beg. We don't break. We fight for tomorrow." The third blow cracks the wood. Splinters scatter across the floor. The old woman pulls the child close, shielding them with her shawl. Ilona grips a stick, her knuckles white. Brannick holds a coil of wire like it's a weapon. Marek grips a pipe, steady as stone. You raise your own weapon, a chair leg, splintered, heavy. Your breath comes fast, your chest tight, your heart pounding. Fear burns in your throat, but beneath it something else, something sharper, something that feels almost like defiance. The fourth blow breaks the door. Wood explodes inward. Boots flood the hall. Uniforms, clipboards, batons. Faces hard and merciless. The inspectors are here, and tomorrow has arrived. The inspectors pour through the broken door like water through a crack in the dam. Boots crash against concrete. Batons gleam in lantern light. Clipboards flap like black wings. Their shouts split the air. Orders bark not to be understood but to dominate. Marek meets them first. His pipe swings wide, metal against helmet, a clang that echoes through the hall. One inspector stumbles, blood flashing at his temple. But there are more. Always more. They surge forward, shouting, grabbing, striking. Ilona screams, not from fear, but from fury, and drives her stick into a guard's gut. He doubles over, wheezing, before another slams his baton across her back. She falls, but she rises again, teeth bared, eyes burning. Brannick pulls a wire taut across the aisle. Two inspectors trip, crashing into crates, their clipboards snapping under them. The bells jangle wildly. A chorus of chaos, alarms singing as though the building itself is fighting back. The old woman shields the child, pressing them behind barrels, her shawl spread wide like wings. Her voice rises, cracked but strong, prayers turning into battle cries. And you, your chair leg cracks against a baton, splinters flying. Pain shoots up your arm, but you grip tighter, swing harder. Fear burns away, replaced by something colder, sharper. Every strike is desperation, every blow survival. You fight not for victory, but for the right to keep breathing one more moment. The room becomes a storm. Shadows and light, smoke and sweat, blood and wax. Clipboards scatter, pages torn, reports shredded into meaningless paper snow. For once their words don't matter, only actions, only survival. Then the whistle, long, sharp, piercing. The roof, the watchers. Through the chaos, you see it. Figures spilling in from the alley door. Not inspectors, not neighbors, shadows, familiar shadows. The stranger leads them, crooked arm raised, scarf whipping in the wind. Behind them, others, thin, hollow, desperate. The alley has come. They don't knock. They don't ask. They crash into the inspectors with the force of hunger turned to rage. Sticks, pipes, rocks, anything that could be lifted becomes a weapon. Their cries mix with yours, a chorus of fury, of defiance, of survival refusing to be confiscated. The inspectors falter. They weren't prepared for this, for unity, for the hungry to stop fighting each other and start fighting them. Their batons swing, but they're outnumbered. Their clipboards shatter. Their boots slip in spilled wax and blood. One by one, they fall back, retreating, shouting orders that no one obeys. And then, they're gone. The door hangs broken, the snow outside trampled with footprints and blood. Silence crashes down, heavy and shocking. The room stands still, breathing hard, bleeding, but alive. Marek lowers his pipe, his chest heaving. Ilona leans against the wall, clutching her side but grinning through the pain. Branik laughs, wild and breathless, holding up a broken wire like a trophy. The old woman whispers, thanks to every saint she remembers, the child clinging to her shawl. And the stranger, bloody, breath ragged, eyes burning, meets your gaze. For once they don't say half. They don't say tomorrow. They just nod. A single, sharp nod. An understanding. You nod back. Because tomorrow isn't hunger anymore. Tomorrow isn't fear. Tomorrow isn't reports scribbled on clipboards or knocks at the window. Tomorrow is fight. And for the first time, fight feels possible. The factory breathes together. One body, one voice, one will. The pot is uncovered. The stove relit. The ledger waits, ready to record not just trades but victories. The child laughs, thin, broken but real. The sound fills the hall, brighter than any lantern. For a moment, everyone smiles, even you. Outside, the snow falls steady, covering the blood, covering the footprints, covering the wreckage, erasing the night, but not the memory, never the memory. And so, that Christmas was not white with joy, but red with fire and black with soot. No feasts, no gifts, no carols, only bowls of wax and water, broken doors, and the echo of boots that learned they could retreat. History never writes about nights like these. History prefers the parades, the banners, the victories it can measure in borders and treaties. It doesn't care for the silent wars fought over soup, but you will remember. You will remember the taste of wax, oily and bitter, sticking to your throat. You will remember the child's laughter the night sugar touched their tongue. You will remember the knock at the window, the crooked arm, the demand for half. You will remember the clipboard man, his pencil scratching reports that could erase lives. You will remember neighbors who became wolves, and wolves who became neighbors again when the boots came. And above all, you will remember that hunger is not just an emptiness of the stomach. It is an emptiness that eats through trust, through mercy, through time itself. Hunger turns Christmas into a battlefield, soup into contraband, candles into calories. Yet, somehow, hope survived. It survived in the ledger written in purple pencil, where trades were measured not in greed, but in fairness. It survived in a stove relit after inspectors fled, in bowls refilled with whatever could be scraped together. It survived in the stranger's nod, wordless but true, the first gesture of alliance instead of demand. It survived in you, because when the door broke, when the boots stormed in, when tomorrow came roaring with batons and clipboards, You didn't kneel. You didn't hand over your last stub of wax to be counted and confiscated. You fought. And in fighting, you proved something larger than survival. You proved that tomorrow doesn't always belong to the ones with uniforms. That Christmas wasn't merry, it wasn't holy, but it was real. And maybe that's the part history gets wrong. Maybe Christmas isn't about feasts or gifts or lights glowing soft in windows. Maybe, at its rawest, Christmas is just the refusal to give up on tomorrow, no matter how bitter the soup tastes tonight. So when you light a candle this season, remember, once that flame was food. Once that wax was boiled into broth that kept someone alive one more day. Once Christmas wasn't garlands and gold. It was a chipped bowl passed hand to hand in a freezing room where people swore not to starve quietly. That is the Christmas when the soup was made of candles. And if you want to honor it, don't just hang lights. Don't just sing carols. Remember the hunger. Remember the fear. Remember that the miracle wasn't the feast. The miracle was that somehow they fought for tomorrow anyway.